Chapter 401. Mr. Liu had previously told Chu Xiu that the Five Poison sect basically followed the lead of moon-worshipping sect. In the past, Chu Xiu had thought that it was only because the Five Poison sect was too close to moon-worshipping sect. Now it seemed that there was more to it. Moon-worshipping sect was also good at refining goo, but unlike the Five Poison sect, which only refined poison goo, they refined other higher-level goo worms, just like the glazed golden thread goo in Chu Xiu's body. Refining goo was only a branch of moon-worshipping sect's cultivation method, and could only be regarded as a support. The true moon-worshipping sect's martial artists mainly cultivated extremely powerful demonic techniques. So in this way, moon-worshipping sect's martial artists could completely suppress the Five Poison sect. It was no wonder that the Five Poison sect was so respectful to moon-worshipping sect. At this time, Chu Xiu was facing Chou Xiangzi in the same way, completely suppressing him to the point where he could not breathe. Chou Xiangzi had completely lost the will to fight, but unfortunately, Chu Xiu did not want to give him another chance to escape. The great Vajra wheel seal came crashing down, and several seals directly hit Chou Xiangzi until he vomited blood. However, the more Chou Xiangzi fought, the more familiar he felt with Chu Xiu. After all, one's appearance could be changed, but a person's habits in battle could not be changed. Others might not be able to sense this, but Chou Xiangzi could be said to be a wily old fox in the pugilistic world. He had fought in the pugilistic world for decades, and his combat experience was very rich. Chou Xiangzi suddenly thought of something. It seemed that during the Demonic Alliance meeting when he fought with Lin Yi, he did not use his trump card goo worms, but his goo worms were also ineffective against the other party. Chou Xiangzi looked at Chu Xiu and his eyes widened in shock. You are... However, before he could finish his sentence, he saw Chu Xiu's hand shine brightly, and the dazzling Buddhist light condensed all the power in Chu Xiu's body and came crashing down. Perfect Aquarius seal. A loud sound rang out. Chou Xiangzi's heart meridian was directly smashed by Chu Xiu's Aquarius seal of perfection. Chou Xiangzi would never be able to say his last sentence. Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and stepped over Chou Xiangzi's corpse. He exchanged glances with Mr. Liu, and the two of them avoided the crowd without batting an eyelid, heading towards a dark corner of the periphery to hide together. The death of Chou Xiangzi did not attract too much attention. After all, this was the battlefield of the righteous and demonic factions. Not to mention Chou Xiangzi, a martial artist at the unity of heaven and man realm, even if a martial Dao Grand Master died, no one would pay attention to it at all. At that moment, Chu Xiu and Mr. Liu were hiding behind a huge rock at the edge of floating Jade Mountain. Chu Xiu had changed his clothes and put on a mask. Mr. Liu chuckled and said, "Well done. That old bastard Chou Xiangzi is very disgusting. I've long wanted to kill him, but I never had the chance. Now that he has sacrificed himself for the demonic path, I believe the people of the Five Poison sect will erect a memorial arch for him." After saying that, Mr. Liu looked at Chu Xiu and said, "You're also going to kill someone? Kill who?" Chu Xiu had already sent a voice transmission to Mr. Liu, asking him to cooperate with him to kill someone. Now that Chu Xiu had two identities, he could fish in troubled waters in the battlefield of the righteous and demonic factions. It could even be said that as long as Chu Xiu did not act so arrogantly as to approach a martial Dao Grand Master, basically no martial artist of the same level could do anything to him. Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, "Of course I'm going to kill Nie Donglu and Xiahou Wujiang. These two guys are very annoying and have caused me a lot of trouble. Although it's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge, I want to take revenge now." There was no need to talk about Nie Donglu. In the past, when Chu Xiu was hunted down, even if Nie Donglu wanted to reconcile, Chu Xiu would not agree. After all, Chu Xiu was not broad-minded. Xiahou Wujiang was also like a fly, stirring up trouble every now and then, which also made Chu Xiu want to kill him. Mr. Liu nodded and looked at the battlefield, frowned and said, "Who do you want to kill first? It's a bit troublesome to kill Nie Donglu first. This guy is really cunning, slacking off behind a group of martial Dao Grand Masters. It's a bit difficult to kill him." This time, there were no martial Dao Grand Master level experts coming to the morgue. After all, Nie Renlong was the only martial Dao Grand Master in the entire morgue. It was not appropriate for him to leave the morgue for such a long time, so only some unity of heaven and man realm martial artists followed Nie Donglu. But Nie Donglu was smart because he knew how to take advantage of the situation. The morgue was very famous in northern Yen, and Nie Renlong had a wide network of friends. This time, almost all the northern Yen martial Dao Grand Masters were friends with Nie Renlong. It was very safe for Nie Donglu to follow behind them, and he could also take the opportunity to kill some demonic martial artists who were not as strong as him, accumulating his own reputation. Now it was a bit difficult for Chu Xiu to kill Nie Donglu, unless he got rid of all of Nie Dongliu's people. Although Chu Xiu was considered a rising star of the hidden devil lineage, he still had some face. However, it was clear that his face was not that big. So, Chu Xiu directly looked at Xiahou Wujiang and said, "Let's get rid of Xiahou Wujiang first. If there's a chance later, then we'll deal with Nie Donglu." Xiahou Wujiang was actually following behind Xiahou Zhen, but Xiahou Zhen was alone. Xiahou Wujiang was fighting with those Devil Dao martial artists under the protection of his father, which could also be considered as accumulating experience. Mr. Lu narrowed his eyes and said, "This is easy to deal with, let's do it." As his voice fell, Mr. Lu left first to inform the martial Dao Grand Masters of the Phaseless Demon Sect. Of course, he couldn't deal with Xiahou Zhen, a martial Dao Grand Master, so he still needed the experts of the Phaseless Demon Sect to come. This time, the martial Dao Grand Masters of the Phaseless Demon Sect were also not few, and one of them was the Shade Demon Envoy, Sidali, who fought at the Divine Weapon Conference. This martial Dao Grand Master also had a grudge against the martial artists of the Hidden Sword Villa, and at this time he was staring at the martial artists of the Hidden Sword Villa. After receiving the news from Mr. Lu, Sidali's eyes showed a touch of surprise, and directly changed his opponent, attacking Xiahou Zhen. Sidali also knew about Chu Xiu's matter, and even many people in the entire Phaseless Demon Sect knew about it, so they didn't object to Mr. Lu befriending and helping Chu Xiu. The Phaseless Demon Sect had a good reputation in the Hidden Devil Clan over the years. Now that the number of people in the Hidden Devil Clan was decreasing, it had already begun to wither. At this time, it was very worthwhile for the Phaseless Demon Sect to make friends with a young elite who came from the direct line of descent of the Devil Clan. Moreover, with the strength that Chu Xiu had displayed, it was worth it for the Phaseless Demon Sect to invest. The most important thing was that Chu Xiu was discovered by Mr. Lu, and Mr. Lu's position in the Phaseless Demon Sect was far higher than Chu Xiu imagined. In the past, Mr. Lu was already an elite disciple of the Phaseless Demon Sect when he was young, and now that he had stepped into the half-step Grandmaster realm, becoming a martial Dao Grandmaster was only a matter of time. Therefore, in the Phaseless Demon Sect, the weight of Mr. Lu's words could basically be used as half a martial Dao Grandmaster. At this time, Xiahou Zhen didn't pay attention to what was happening around him. He was fighting with a group of people in the crowd, but he still retained some strength. This matter was mainly caused by the 5 major sword sects, so naturally the 5 major sword sects should be the main force. Although they could make a move, there was no need to fight to the death. Therefore, Xiahou Zhen usually only exchanged a few blows with those demonic martial artists, and then immediately escaped, not entangled with them at all. As for those demonic martial artists, they also had a lot of enemies, so they wouldn't entangle with Xiahou Zhen endlessly. However, at this moment, a dense demonic chi suddenly attacked. Xiahou Zhen's spirit shone with a golden light, drawing the power of heaven and earth to condense into a shield beside him. With a loud bang, the demonic chi dissipated, and Xiahou Zhen's spirit shield also shattered. Xiahou Zhen turned his head and looked, and Sidali was staring at him with a sneer. The Phaseless Demon Sect's Shade Demon Envoy, Sidali, was still very famous. Xiahou Zhen also knew him, but there was no enmity between the two sides, nor was there any conflict. Of course, now that the righteous and demonic sects on Floating Jade Mountain were fighting, even if there was no conflict in the past, it was very normal for both sides to fight during the war between the righteous and demonic sections. Just as Xiahou Zhen was about to say something, Sidali rushed towards him again. His hands formed a seal, and in an instant, monstrous demonic chi enveloped Xiahou Zhen, turning into a world of bliss that pulled Xiahou Zhen into it. There were fairies dancing on the upper level, and there were hellish ghosts constantly howling below. It was extremely evil, and it wore down Xiahou Zhen's spirit. This was the Phaseless Demon Sect's Sky Demon Formless technique. Situli's Sky Demon Formless technique was closer to a spiritual attack, and it just so happened that Xiahou Zhen was also good in this aspect. Looking at the dancing fairies and ghosts around him, Xiahou Zhen sneered. His body shone with a golden light, and the power of his soul turned into a long sword, directly shattering the world of bliss in front of him. However, Sidali did not retreat. Instead, he slammed his palm down, and the monstrous demonic chi roared as he fought with Xiahou Zhen. The more Xiahou Zhen fought, the more he felt that something was wrong. Just what kind of grudge did he have with Sidali? Why was he pestering him like this, as if he wanted to fight to the death with him? This time, it was the 5 sword sects that wanted to slap the demonic sects in the face. The Fortune Demon flag was also in their hands. Even if Sidali wanted to fight to the death, he should fight the 5 sword sections. Why was he fighting him? As he fought, Xiahou Zhen said coldly, "Situ Li, my Xiahou clan doesn't seem to have offended you, right?" Situ Li let out a strange laugh and said, "Since your Xiahou clan is standing on the side of the righteous sects, you have offended me. The righteous and demonic sects are irreconcilable. You are already standing on the side of the five-sword sects to kill us evil sects, and now you still expect me to hold back?" As soon as he finished speaking, Situ Li attacked Xiahou Zhen again, looking like he had to fight to the death with Xiahou Zhen. Secretly cursing Situ Li for being a lunatic, Xiahou Zhen had no choice but to bite the bullet and continue attacking. At this time, the masked Chu Xiu appeared behind Xiahou Wujiang. With a cold look in his eyes, he slammed his fist down, and demonic killing intent gathered. Chapter 402. Xiahou Wujiang was actually a little depressed. This World Sword Sect conference was somewhat baffling to him. He had followed his father to see the world and accumulate experience, but he had unexpectedly encountered Chu Xiu, a sworn enemy. He had wanted to scheme against him, but he had not succeeded. Then the World Sword Sect conference turned into the so-called righteous and demonic wars. As one of the 9 great families, the Xiahou clan was naturally considered a righteous sect. At this time they naturally had to take action. However, Xiahou Wujiang was not in the mood to eliminate demons and defend the righteous path. He just followed behind Xiahou Zhen and occasionally used the Imperial Spirit technique to sneak an attack on those demonic path martial artists whose strength was far inferior to his. He looked listless. From this point, the gap between Ye Donglu and Xiahou Wujiang could be seen, as well as their attitudes towards certain things. Ye Donglu had also suffered at the hands of Chu Xiu, and he had even been defeated by Chu Xiu in front of everyone, losing face and reputation. But now, this righteous and demonic wars were an opportunity for Ye Donglu. Xiahou Wujiang was leeching off listlessly. Ye Donglu was also leeching off. However, he would put on a show and kill some demonic path warriors. He would also take the initiative to rescue some warriors in danger to build up his reputation. In the past, Ye Dongliu's strength was not as good as Xiahou Wujiang's, but his ranking on the Longhu list was higher than Xiahou Wujiang's. This was one of the reasons. While Xiahou Wujiang was still being a hedonistic son of rich parents, eating, drinking and having fun, relying solely on his talent to cultivate lazily, Ye Donglu had already begun to accumulate his own reputation. He would not let go of even the smallest matter. At this time, Xiahou Wujiang was still letting his imagination run wild. His father was entangled by the demonic path martial artists, but Xiahou Wujiang was not worried. He believed in Xiahou Zhen's strength. No, he was also subconsciously staying a little further away to avoid being accidentally injured during the fight between martial arts grandmaster-level powerhouses. At this moment, a powerful murderous intent assaulted him from behind, causing Xiahou Wujiang's expression to change. He formed a seal with both hands, and the spiritual energy around him materialized and attached itself to his hand seals. As Xiahou Wujiang's seal fell, it instantly erupted with blinding golden divine light. Only then was he able to block the punch coming from behind him. Turning his head, he saw a black-robed cultivator wearing a black iron mask staring at him. His eyes were bloodshot and filled with killing intent. Xiahou Wujiang frowned. Who was this guy? He had the same point of view as his father. Their Xiahou clan came to the World Sword Sect meet just to be bystanders. They were not prepared to get any benefits, but they did not plan to offend anyone either. However, it was clear that some people didn't think so. Some people were already planning to pester him. However, Xiahou Wujiang was not afraid. The person in front of him only had the strength of the 5 Qis collecting in the origin realm. Xiahou Wujiang also had his own pride. No matter what, his strength could be ranked in the top 10 of the Longhu leaderboard. Few cultivators of the same rank could match him. This guy was nothing. However, just as Xiahou Wujiang was about to open his mouth to say something, Chu Xiu did not say anything. He directly punched out. The annihilating heaven and earth obliterating oblivion killing fist was displayed to the extreme by him. The scarlet killing intent seemed to have condensed into a substance as it once again charged towards Xiahou Wujiang. Seeing this scene, Xiahou Wujiang could not help but secretly curse that the person in front of him was crazy. He had the same reaction as his father. Hastily retreating, Xiahou Wujiang formed a seal with his hands, and dazzling golden light erupted from his primordial spirit. Although Xiahou Wujiang could not control the power of the world with the power of his primordial spirit like his father, his cultivation in the spirit control art was strong enough. Fusing his mental strength with his true qi, he shot explosively towards Chu Xiu like an arrow. With a loud bang, Chu Xiu's annihilating heaven and earth annihilating oblivion killing fist directly shattered the primordial spirit arrow, which immediately made Xiahou Wujiang's eyebrows jump. Xiahou Wujiang knew the power of the annihilating heaven and earth annihilating oblivion killing fist. After all, there were many people who knew this martial art in Jianghu. There were many experts from the military of Eastern Qi who knew this martial art, and Xiahou Wujiang had even seen them use it. However, even those cultivators from the military of Eastern Qi did not have such a terrifying cultivation in the annihilating heaven and earth annihilating oblivion killing fist. Who was this person in front of him to be able to condense such a terrifying killing intent? However, Xiahou Wujiang was not depressed at this time. Everyone had a weakness. The person in front of him was indeed terrifying in terms of strength, but the imperial spirit art of their Xiahou clan did not only have this little power. In the instant that the primordial spirit arrow was shattered, a golden light burst out from the exploding Gang Qi, heading straight for the aperture point between Chu Xiu's eyebrows. This was a golden light, the purest power of Xiahou Wujiang's primordial spirit. Once it entered his opponent's body, it would immediately suppress his opponent's mental strength, turning him into his puppet. However, in the instant that the golden light approached his body, Chu Xiu's eyes evolved into a boundless abyss, and he used the annihilating heaven and earth annihilating soul shifting technique. An equally majestic mental strength instantly strangled the golden light of Xiahou Wujiang's primordial spirit. Because his own mental strength was still somewhat connected to the golden light of the primordial spirit, Xiahou Wujiang also suffered some shock. This made him groan and take a few steps back, a look of shock in his eyes. To be able to cancel out the power of his primordial spirit without any effort, the other party's mental strength had obviously reached a certain level, even enough to contend with him. However, the power of the other party's killing fist had made Xiahou Wujiang think that the other party was definitely proficient in this kind of close combat killing technique. He did not expect the other party to even know mental secret techniques. Xiahou Wujiang thought to himself that this was not good, and his figure could not help but retreat. Although Xiahou Wujiang used to be arrogant to the point of conceit, after suffering 2 losses at the hands of Chu Xiu, he had some idea in his heart, and would not try to be brave again. The imperial spirit art of their Xiahou clan was very easy to deal with when facing martial artists who were not proficient in primordial spirit secret techniques, and it was also very useful when facing martial artists who were proficient in primordial spirit secret techniques. Anyway, to the Xiahou clan, they did not feel that their imperial spirit art was weaker than anyone else's. What truly made the martial artists of the Xiahou clan feel troublesome was a martial artist like the person in front of them. In terms of mental strength, it did not matter even if the other party was slightly weaker than Xiahou Wujiang, as long as he could just barely resist the imperial spirit art. But if the other party was also proficient in powerful close combat killing techniques, then once the other party got close, what awaited the martial artists of the Xiahou clan would be a nightmare. Obviously this was the case for Chu Xiu now. Xiahou Wujiang had given him so much trouble, and this time, Chu Xiu did not want to let Xiahou Wujiang off. Chu Xiu walked toward Xiahou Wujiang step by step, each step crossing a distance of several dozen feet. At this time, half of his body was Buddhist light, and the other half was demonic flames. Holy and evil intertwined, but it seemed extremely harmonious. His hand formed a seal, and as Chu Xiu's seal fell, the Buddhist light and demonic aura around him condensed into an evil phantom, solemn and dignified, but at the same time filled with demonic flames. Great Vajra divine power, Mara Vajra form. Under the intertwining and crushing of the Buddhist light and demonic aura, Xiahou Wujiang was blasted back step by step. He did not have time to use his imperial spirit art before he was completely suppressed by the other party. Golden light spread all over Xiahou Wujiang's body, but it was not for attack but for defense. The Xiahou clan's imperial spirit art was extremely invasive, and at this time, Xiahou Wujiang was forced by Chu Xiu to only be able to defend. It could be imagined how much pressure he was under now. Seeing the opponent in front of him closing in step by step, Xiahou Wujiang could not help but grit his teeth, and a ruthless look appeared in his eyes. Although there were not many Buddhist and demonic cultivators in the pugilistic world, there were still many, especially in the 6th demon sect. Almost all the martial artists from the 6th demon sect cultivated demonic and Buddhist cultivators at the same time. Therefore, Xiahou Wujiang had subconsciously regarded the other party as a martial artist from the 6th demon sect. Because the other party rarely appeared in the Central Plains, he did not know him. But right now, it was no longer important to see the other party's background. If he continued to be suppressed by the other party, he was afraid that he would not be able to wait for his father's rescue, and he would be in danger. Therefore Xiahou Wujiang directly used the power of his primordial spirit to clash head-on with Chu Xiu. But because his own strength was too weak, he was still blasted back dozens of feet, and a mouthful of blood spurted out. However, Xiahou Wujiang seemed to have done it on purpose. He pulled his hands horizontally, and his stellar energy condensed into the shape of a zither string. As he infused all his mental strength into his hands, he plucked the zither string, and a series of explosive sounds came from Chu Xiu's ears. Imperial Spirit Guqin Sound. This technique of the Xiahou clan used stellar energy as the zither string, but in fact, it was played with mental strength, and every step was filled with murderous intent. But unfortunately it was still useless. The seals in Chu Xiu's hands changed, and from the Mara Dharma form to the Guardian Vajra, the demon-subduing pestle completely condensed from stellar energy came crashing down, completely smashing the stellar energy zither string formed by Xiahou Wujiang into pieces. Xiahou Wujiang did not have time to resist, and he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. It was unknown whether he was really injured or just sullen. At this time, Xiahou Zhen saw that Xiahou Wujiang was beaten to the point of vomiting blood, and he simply could not imagine it. As a father, he naturally knew how much strength his son had, so Xiahou Zhen was also relieved. As long as he did not encounter the top 10 on the Longhu list, Xiahou Wujiang could win. But now it was a slap in the face. Xiahou Wujiang seemed to have lost miserably, even in imminent danger, so Xiahou Zhen immediately wanted to rescue Xiahou Wujiang, but he was entangled by Sita Li, who did not give him any chance at all, which made Xiahou Zhen even more anxious. He was this generation's patriarch of the Xiahou clan. In the next generation, Xiahou Zhen also wanted to support Xiahou Wujiang to this position, so that his bloodline would completely become the main bloodline of the Xiahou clan. Of course, the premise of this was that Xiahou Wujiang could be qualified for this position, and could live long enough to take over this position. But now that Xiahou Wujiang was in imminent danger, Xiahou Zhen directly gritted his teeth and did not care about anything else. He had to rescue his son first. After all, he was the hope for the rest of his life. Although he had more than one child, Xiahou Wujiang was the only one with the talent to inherit the position of patriarch. Chapter 403. Xiahou Wujiang was in imminent danger. Xiahou Zhen looked coldly at Sita Li and shouted, "Does your faceless demon sect really want to fight my Xiahou clan to the death?" Sita Li narrowed his eyes and sneered. "It's not that my faceless demon sect wants to fight you, but your Xiahou clan wants to go against my demon Dao. You don't want your son to die? Fine, it's simple. Take your Xiahou clan's people and leave Floating Jade Mountain, and I'll immediately let go. Do you dare?" Xiahou Zhen's face was gloomy and he didn't say anything. Of course he didn't dare. It should be known that this was no longer a dispute between the 5 major sword sects and the demon Dao. The conflict between the two sides was on the surface, and it had developed into a war between the righteous and demonic sections. At this time, the forces participating in the war represented the righteous sections. Only a small number of existences like the World Alliance didn't make a move. Their Xiahou clan had already made a move, but they gave up halfway. What was this? Betraying the righteous sects? Their Xiahou clan's reputation would plummet. The Xiahou clan didn't belong to Xiahou Zhen alone. Therefore, any decision Xiahou Zhen made had to be in line with the Xiahou clan's interests. If Xiahou Zhen dared to escape Floating Jade Mountain with his people in order to save his son, it would affect the Xiahou clan's reputation. When Xiahou Zhen returned to the Xiahou clan, he could forget about being the Xiahou clan's patriarch. A person who disregarded the Xiahou clan's interests for his own selfish desires wasn't fit to be the Xiahou clan's patriarch. But of course, Xiahou Zhen couldn't allow his son to be killed by someone else. At this time, Xiahou Zhen suddenly thought of something and shouted at Xiahou Wujiang, "Run! Escape from Floating Jade Mountain." The Xiahou clan couldn't run, but Xiahou Wujiang could. After all, he was only a junior martial artist and couldn't represent the entire Xiahou clan. If he ran before the battle, Xiahou Wujiang would only lose some reputation at most. Anyway, for a junior martial artist like him, there was still a chance to make up for his reputation in the future. Xiahou Wujiang was shocked. Even if Xiahou Zhen hadn't said it, he already wanted to run. The person in front of him had cultivated both strength and mental strength to the extreme, enough to crush Xiahou Wujiang in all aspects. Xiahou Wujiang wasn't an idiot. Going head-on against such an opponent was purely courting death. Hence, Xiahou Wujiang immediately turned around and fled without any hesitation. Seeing Xiahou Wujiang's actions, Chu Xiu sneered. If Xiahou Wujiang could still escape this time, then it would only be if he really had great luck on him. Although Xiahou Wujiang's realm was improving very quickly, in fact in terms of combat power, Xiahou Wujiang was still not as good as Nie Donglu. His background and foundation were too weak. Xiahou Wujiang had stepped into the Five Qi's origin realm because of external factors, and he hadn't had the time to train his own origin realm yet. Therefore his current realm was a little shallow. Even if Chu Xiu couldn't use the Sky Demon Dance or the fast and slow 9 words formula in order to hide his identity, he could still easily crush Xiahou Wujiang. The devil qi around Chu Xiu surged and shrouded him. At the same time, Chu Xiu's eyes also glowed with a hint of red. In an instant he stepped into the selfless killing realm. His speed suddenly rose by a large margin, and he directly attacked Xiahou Wujiang. Berserk demonic qi and killing intent condensed around Chu Xiu's body as he continuously attacked Xiahou Wujiang. Xiahou Wujiang would spit out a mouthful of blood with almost every punch that landed. However, Xiahou Wujiang was really putting his life on the line in order to escape. Gritting his teeth, Xiahou Wujiang pointed a finger at his forehead. In an instant, his qi and blood mixed with golden light shone brightly. The Xiahou clan's method of burning their essence blood was also different from the others. The others only burned their essence blood, but the Xiahou clan's people burned both their essence blood and their essence soul. Although it consumed more of their essence blood, it was also more powerful. In the blink of an eye, Xiahou Wujiang's body actually bloomed with 7 rays of golden light, exploding around him. Their auras were exactly the same, and it was impossible to distinguish the real from the fake. Chu Xiu was not anxious at all. The murderous intent in his eyes faded, and what replaced it was a strange scene of the sun, moon, and stars rotating. Chu Xiu used the heaven's sun gazing at air technique to the extreme. The 7 figures in the golden light were almost visible, and there was no place to hide. Xiahou Wujiang's escape technique was called the soul transformation technique. It evolved thousands of divine thoughts and it had no offensive power. It was purely prepared for escape. It could be said that even a martial arts grandmaster would not be able to see the mystery in it. Either your speed and strength were extremely fast, and you could catch up to those golden lights and shatter them one by one to see if they were real or fake, or you could only try your luck. Unfortunately, Xiahou Wujiang had encountered Chu Xiu. The heaven's sun gazing at air technique almost completely countered his Xiahou clan's technique. After catching up to Xiahou Wujiang's real body, Chu Xiu's fist landed. Before the Gang Qi had even reached his body, the powerful murderous intent had already made Xiahou Wujiang vomit blood and destroyed the meridians in his body. After burning his essence blood and spirit, Xiahou Wujiang's strength had been exhausted to the extreme. He was originally not a match for Chu Xiu, and now he could forget about fighting in close combat with Chu Xiu. However, Xiahou Wujiang was extremely unwilling. His final position had actually been destroyed by the person in front of him. This was simply impossible. Therefore, in Xiahou Wujiang's view, it could only be said that the person in front of him had better luck and happened to chase after the right person. But if there was a 1 in 7 chance that the other party could guess correctly with good luck, didn't that prove that the heavens wanted Xiahou Wujiang to die today? At this time, when Xiahou Zhen saw that Xiahou Wujiang could not even run away, he showed a competitive look on his face, and he shouted at Sita Li, "Stop! My Xiahou clan is willing to withdraw from this righteous demonic war." Although Xiahou Zhen didn't have only one son, Xiahou Wujiang, Xiahou Zhen had raised Xiahou Wujiang from a young age. If it had been any of his other sons, Xiahou Zhen might have considered whether his identity as the family head or his son was more important. But now, it was Xiahou Wujiang, the Xiahou Wujiang whom he had brought with him since he was young, the Xiahou Wujiang whom he had the deepest feelings for. Xiahou Zhen didn't want to weigh the pros and cons anymore. He couldn't just watch his son die here. Even if the Xiahou clan investigated his responsibility afterwards, what could they do? At most, they would just move him to a position where he couldn't get any benefits and not let him continue to be the clan head. And with Xiahou Wujiang's current age and realm, it wouldn't be too difficult for him to become the new clan head in the future. Among the disciples of the same generation, no one could defeat Xiahou Wujiang. Anyway, as long as one was alive, there was always hope. However, Sita Li revealed a nasty smile at this time and said, "You want to withdraw now? Too late." Xiahou Zhen roared angrily, "Your faceless demon sect is courting death." Sita Li said fearlessly, "In this world there are many people who want my faceless demon sect to die. Your Xiahou clan won't make a difference." What Sita Li said was true. Their faceless demon sect was indeed not afraid of the Xiahou clan. The faceless demon sect wholeheartedly wanted to rebuild the Kunlun devil cult, which could be said to be standing on the opposite side of the entire pugilistic world. although everyone in the pugilistic world knew that this was basically impossible. So from the beginning, the phaseless demon sect was already prepared to face the hostility of the entire pugilistic world. Now, it didn't matter if the Xiahou clan was added or not. Most importantly, with the way the phaseless demon sect acted, even if the Xiahou clan wanted to find them for revenge, they wouldn't be able to find them. Meanwhile, on Xiahou Wujiang's side, he had been pushed to the extreme by Chu Xiu. Between life and death, Xiahou Wujiang fiercely clenched his teeth. His hands formed a complicated seal, and a strange symbol appeared between his eyebrows. Countless primordial spirit golden light gathered at one point, and the light shone brightly. In an instant it shrouded Chu Xiu. Xiahou Wujiang had erupted all the power of his primordial spirit. He was completely prepared to use his own spiritual power to forcefully resist Chu Xiu's spiritual power. This was a method that would completely destroy both sides. Even if Xiahou Wujiang didn't die after this, his spiritual power would be completely destroyed. But unfortunately, if Xiahou Wujiang used this move at his peak, Chu Xiu would definitely choose to retreat and escape. Xiahou Wujiang wanted to fight with his life, but Chu Xiu didn't want to fight with him. But unfortunately, Xiahou Wujiang had already burned his blood essence just now, and the power of his primordial spirit had fallen by a large margin. At this time, even if he wanted to fight with his life, he already didn't have the capital to do so. Chu Xiu's eyes were like deep pools. He displayed the soul-shifting technique of extinguishing skies and extinguishing earth to the extreme. Shrouded in the primordial spirit golden light, he directly fought and strangled Xiahou Wujiang head-on. As soon as the spiritual power of both sides came into contact, Xiahou Wujiang let out a muffled groan, and then his eyes revealed a look of shock. He had already recognized Chu Xiu's identity. Spiritual power seemed to be invisible and intangible, but in fact, it had more characteristics than true qi. Of course, this characteristic could only be discerned by martial artists like the Xiahou clan, who specialized in spiritual power. Xiahou Wujiang had once competed with Chu Xiu's spiritual power at the God Weapon Conference, so now that the two sides' spiritual power clashed, he instantly recognized Chu Xiu's identity. This guy dressed as a demonic martial artist turned out to be Chu Xiu. Xiahou Wujiang wanted to shout and expose Chu Xiu's identity. This was a great battle between the righteous and demonic sections. As long as Chu Xiu's identity was exposed, there would be no place for him in the righteous sections. Unfortunately, all his spiritual power was entangled with Chu Xiu. Not to mention shouting, he couldn't even say a word. As the darkness in Chu Xiu's eyes became thicker and thicker, the spiritual power brought by the soul-shifting technique of extinguishing skies and extinguishing earth was completely displayed by Chu Xiu to the extreme. A soundless explosion came, and Xiahou Wujiang suddenly let out a muffled groan. His spiritual power was completely strangled, and his entire body was bleeding from all 7 apertures. In an instant, he lost his breath and fell to the ground, but there was still a trace of unwillingness in his eyes. With just one word, he could have ruined Chu Xiu's reputation. Chapter 404. Xiahou Wujiang was killed by Chu Xiu before he could say what he wanted to say, but Xiahou Zhen had already fallen into a violent rage at this time. He had been dormant in his youth, and only emerged in his middle age, becoming the leader of the Xiahou clan. Xiahou Zhen was also a person with great ambition. There was no main bloodline among the direct descendants of the Xiahou clan. In theory, as long as you were a martial artist of the Xiahou clan and performed well, you could become the leader of the clan. This system was actually very beneficial to the Xiahou clan. While it increased the competition, it could also select the truly excellent successors. But Xiahou Zhen had always wanted to make the Xiahou clan his own, to make all the elders who were in the way get out, and the entire Xiahou clan would have to listen to his bloodline. Unfortunately, Xiahou Zhen's dream was now shattered. Xiahou Wujiang had all kinds of flaws, but the only thing he had was his talent, which was enough to look down on all the talents of the younger generation of the Xiahou clan. Xiahou Zhen's other sons might be more sensible than Xiahou Wujiang, but in this Jianghu where strength determined success or failure, without strength, everything was empty talk. In a rage, Xiahou Zhen began to attack Sita Li madly, wanting to finish him off and kill Chu Xiu. But seeing that he had achieved his goal, Sita Li continued to fight and entangle him. The martial arts of the phaseless demon sect were extremely strange, and they were clearly very good at this kind of situation. At this time, on Chu Xiu's side, he had already killed one of the people he wanted to kill, but he did not recover his identity as Chu Xiu, and instead turned his gaze to Nye Donglu. For Chu Xiu, he was born in the Guanzhong torture room, and it did not matter whether he stood on the side of the righteous path or not. Even if he remained neutral like Xie Xiaolu and the other people of the World Alliance, no one would say anything about him. Just now he had saved the people of Ba Mountain Sword Sect as a righteous person, and killed Chou Xiangzi. That was enough. It would not be good to be in the limelight anymore. However, Nie Dongliu's actions disappointed Chu Xiu. Compared to Xiahou Wujiang, Nie Donglu was much more cautious. He followed closely behind the Northern Yen martial Dao masters and did not advance rashly. Instead, Chu Xiu could not find a chance to attack. Mr. Lu walked to Chu Xiu's side and said in a low voice, "This Nie Donglu is a character just like his father Nie Renlong, not to be trifled with. The Xiahou Wujiang you killed was at best an arrogant playboy who relied on his talent and identity. Without the background of the Xiahou clan, his achievements were limited. Nie Donglu on the other hand is not simple. Although he is now the young master of the Loyalty Village, he can still thrive in the Jianghu even without that identity." Chu Xiu nodded. He had enmity with Nie Donglu for so long, of course he knew what kind of person Nie Donglu was. That was why he wanted to find a chance to get rid of him. But now it seemed that he would not have this chance. But at this time Mr. Lu poked Chu Xiu and said, "You can't get rid of this enemy. Why don't you get someone else to do it? In any case you have many chances to act here. No one will suspect you in the chaos." Chu Xiu was stunned. "You mean the people of Ba Mountain Sword Sect?" Mr. Lu smiled disdainfully. "Do you think the trash of Ba Mountain Sword Sect counts as your enemy? I'm talking about that one." Chu Xiu thought about it and agreed. Looking at Teacher Tsin's appearance, he knew what the Ba Mountain Sword Sect was like. This kind of person did not even qualify to be his enemy. Following the direction of Mr. Lu's finger, Mr. Lu was actually referring to an old monk who was exceptionally brave despite his old age. He had killed several demonic Dao cultivators in succession. Chu Xiu frowned and said, "Who is this old monk?" Mr. Lu laughed strangely. "You killed his disciple, but now you don't even recognize his master? He is the master of monk Ming Chen who died at your hands last time, Elder Hui Zhen of the Vajra Institute. This person doesn't have much of a reputation in the pugilistic world. In fact, he's a nobody in the entire Temple of Great Light. However, this guy is very experienced. Even the current Vajrayard's first seat, Su Yen, was taken care of by him in the past." Chu Xiu nodded. He looked at Hui Zhen with a hint of murderous intent. His enmity with the Great Light Temple should have been resolved on the surface. After all, the first seat of the Great Light Temple's vain thought Zen Hall, Su Yun, had spoken. But in reality? The group of martial artists from the Great Light Temple still looked at Chu Xiu with displeasure. Furthermore, they were very displeased. Chu Xiu knew what position he held in the hearts of these martial artists from the Great Light Temple when Ming Chen's senior and junior brothers challenged him one after another in the arena. Hui Zhen did not act against him under the pressure of Su Yun, but Chu Xiu believed that as long as he was alive, Hui Zhen would not let go of the hatred of killing his disciple. Also, with this old monk's seniority in the Great Light Temple, if he really wanted to find trouble for him, then the trouble would be great. Mr. Lu stood next to Chu Xiu and asked, "Do you need help?" Chu Xiu looked around and said, "Not for now. Too many people will attract attention. Let the people of the Phaseless Demon Sect help me lure this old monk to the side. Just don't let the people of the Great Light Temple support him." Mr. Lu nodded. This kind of thing was what the Phaseless Demon Sect was good at. At this moment, Hui Zhen did not sense the killing intent that someone in the distance revealed towards him. He was fiercely attacking, killing the demonic martial artists in front of him. Although he was old, his Buddhist martial arts allowed him to display incomparably fierce and overbearing strength. This time Hui Zhen was actually very sullen. Of course, he wanted to take revenge for killing his disciple. Even if it was not for himself, he wanted to give Ming Chen, who was still in the underworld, an explanation. However, it was a pity that he had already promised Su Yun to let go of this grudge. Moreover, if he made a move against Chu Xiu now, it would affect the reputation of the entire Great Light Temple. Hence, from the start of the World Sword Sect Conference until now, Hui Zhen did not plan to make a move. He even advised and suppressed the other warriors not to act impulsively. It was just that Hui Zhen did not want to attack, but Chu Xiu wanted to attack first to gain the upper hand. At this time, when Hui Zhen attacked and killed those demonic path warriors, he was abnormally fierce and ferocious. For him this was also a way to vet. Buddhists could not kill innocent people. But for all Buddhist warriors, as long as they were from the demonic path, none of them were innocent. Therefore, killing them was actually accumulating merit. It was not breaking the rules but saving people. At this time, Hui Zhen was killing with this kind of mentality. In fact, he was also venting. The phaseless demon sect even used this mentality to lead Hui Zhen to the edge, away from the Great Light Temple. Then they retreated. Hui Zhen really did not notice this and was still attacking crazily. But at this time, Chu Xiu's figure suddenly appeared behind Hui Zhen. He took a step forward and the demonic qi and killing intent gathered around him. It turned into the annihilating heaven and earth annihilating oblivion killing fist. It was simply a naked sneak attack. The people of the righteous path never liked to talk about rules with the demonic path warriors. Now that Chu Xiu attacked Hui Zhen, of course, there was no need to talk about those rules. Hui Zhen's whole body was full of Buddha's light. A Vajra shadow that was completely condensed from stellar energy appeared behind Hui Zhen. His hands were put together and the Buddha's light was full. It collided with this palm. Immediately the demonic blood qi scattered, but the Vajra shadow also faded. And the warriors who were struggling under Hui Zhen's hands just now were relieved. At the same time they secretly cursed this old monk. He was even more ruthless than the demonic path. Once the fight started, it was completely a crazy stance of fighting with his life. Among the warriors who fought with Hui Zhen, there were people from the bright demon lineage and people from the hidden demon lineage. They had a good impression of Chu Xiu. After all, this person was in the limelight during the demonic path conference. This was the representative of the shadow demon sect, and he was even valued by the phaseless demon sect. With the power of 5 Qi's origin realm, he was able to defeat the famous 5 poison sect's Zhou Xiangzi. He was obviously an impressive figure. Hui Zhen turned his head and looked at Chu Xiu. He said coldly, "Which demonic path sorcerer are you from? Go down and ask the Buddha." The Mara Vajra shadow appeared behind Chu Xiu. The evil demonic qi intertwined with the Buddha's light. With a palm strike, 2 completely different powers suddenly exploded and attacked Hui Zhen. Seeing this, Hui Zhen could not help but reveal a deep anger in his eyes. "So you're actually a demonic path sorcerer from the 6th demon sect." In the Jianghu, as long as Buddhist and demonic path cultivators were mentioned, almost everyone would subconsciously think of the 6th demon sect. As martial art practitioners of the Buddhist sects, the Great Light Temple naturally loathed sects like the 6th heavenly demon sect that could interfere with their Buddhist cultivation. They even viewed them as a thorn in their side. "You guessed wrong, so there's no reward." Chu Xiu took a step forward. The demonic qi and Buddha's light condensed to form an evil demon god shadow. Both of his hands formed a fist seal and landed. Half of it was a monstrous demonic qi, while the other half was a dazzling Buddha's light. It actually forced Hui Zhen to retreat continuously. There were no weaklings among the monks from the Great Light Temple. Hui Zhen was naturally the same. In his early years, he even had the ability to challenge the Vajra institution's first seat. Unfortunately, his mental state cultivation was not up to the mark. In the end, he stopped at the martial arts grandmaster realm. There was almost no hope for him to break through in this lifetime. Moreover, Hui Zhen was already old now. His qi and blood had deteriorated greatly. For a sect like the Great Light Temple that specialized in body refining techniques, aging was definitely the most terrifying thing. Even if Chu Xiu needed to conceal his identity and could not use the fast and slow 9 words formula or his own saber techniques, he could still suppress Hui Zhen in terms of pure strength. When the other demonic path martial artists saw that Chu Xiu alone could match or even suppress Hui Zhen, they also retreated and did not plan to get involved. This rising star of the demonic path, Lin Yi, was indeed very powerful. He was even able to suppress a veteran martial art practitioner from the Temple of Great Light. Looking at his power, he did not lose to Yi Tianxia from the evil pole sect, who was on a killing spree with his blood spear. Chapter 405. Among the younger generation of the Diabolism, the one who performed the best was the holy maiden of the moon-worshipping cult. Of course, no one knew how old she was, but the moon-worshipping cult announced that the holy maiden of this generation had yet to mature, so she was probably still young. Besides the holy maiden of the moon-worshipping cult, Yi Tianxia's performance was the most dazzling. His own strength was unparalleled, and with the blood dragon spear in his hand, he was invincible. Almost all the warriors at the 5 Qi's origin realm could not withstand 3 strikes from his spear. After defeating his opponent, Yi Tianxia subconsciously looked over at Chu Xiu. After all, he had fought with Chu Xiu during the Diabolism meeting. However, that was just a test and not the true strength of both parties. Hence, Yi Tianxia also wanted to see how strong this Lin Yi was. However, when he saw the intense battle between Chu Xiu and Hui Zhen in the distance, Yi Tianxia raised his dashing eyebrows. Where did this Lin Yi come from? He was actually able to fight head-on with a monk from the Great Light Temple to this extent. Although he was just an old monk, he was still a warrior at the unity of heaven and man realm from the Great Light Temple. This made Yi Tianxia feel a little pressured. He was an elite secretly cultivated by the Omniscient sect. It could be said that the entire Omniscient sect had devoted all its resources to him, just so that he could rise. In fact, Yi Tianxia himself thought so too. In his opinion, the younger generation of the diabolism should respect him. His goal was to become an existence like Fang Qishao and Zhang Qingzhen. Unfortunately, he had suffered some setbacks the first time he stepped out of the Omniscient sect. First, there was Lin Yi, whose strength was unfathomable, in the diabolism. Then, there was the Holy Maiden of the moon-worshipping cult whose strength was also unfathomable. On the side of the righteous path, although Zhang Qingzhen and Zhong Xian did not come, Fang Qishao, who was ranked third, had terrifying strength. At least, before Yi Tianxia stepped into the unity of heaven and man realm, he would not have the courage to attack Fang Qishao. Shaking his head, Yi Tianxia cast these useless emotions aside. Yi Tianxia was a unique existence in Jianghu for practicing the skills of a ferocious beast as a human. He believed that his future would definitely not be limited to this. He might not be able to defeat 7th Young Master Fang and the others now, but in the future, these people would definitely be trampled under his feet. At this time, Chu Xiu did not know what Yi Tianxia was thinking. He was fighting fiercely with Hui Zhen. Although the old monk was old, he still retained a very strong combat power. The punch from his skinny arm still had the power to shake mountains. Sensing the killing intent emanating from Chu Xiu's body, Hui Zhen sneered and said, "This old monk has eradicated countless villains and evildoers like you in this lifetime. I don't even know how many of those devil path experts who have been famous for a long time have died in my hands. A little devil brat like you wants to kill me? Dream on." As soon as he finished speaking, the Buddha aura around Hui Zhen's body erupted, and a four-armed, two-faced Vajra shadow faintly condensed behind him. Among the Vajra shadow, the first side was a Vajra with angry eyes, fierce and brutal. The other side was a solemn Bodhisattva, vast and compassionate, bemoaning the state of the universe and pitying the people. This was the true essence of the furious Vajra Heart Sutra. The heart of a Bodhisattva, the means of a Vajra. Kill one person to save 10. The furious Vajra Heart Sutra was only to save people, not to kill. If one fell into anger, one would fall into a disadvantageous position, and it would be easier for one to go berserk. The Vajra department had the largest number of people among the 6 major martial arts departments of the Great Light Temple, but it was not the strongest. The reason was that although the monks of the Vajra department could cultivate faster in the early stages, there were very few martial artists who could truly comprehend the true essence of the furious Vajra Heart Sutra. Now that the Vajra department's first seat Su Yen had comprehended it, Hui Zhen had also comprehended it. However, he had comprehended it a little too late. His lifespan was coming to an end, and his chi and blood were declining. He no longer had the qualifications to become a martial arts master. The Vajra department's two-faced Vajra, which was glowing with resplendent Buddha light, emitted an imposing aura. As Su Yan's punches landed, the two-faced Vajra also condensed a huge palm of righteous chi, which blasted towards Chu Xiu. Hui Zhen's sudden outburst of power was shocking. Chu Xiu's figure retreated quickly, and his hands formed a seal. A blurry Buddha shadow appeared behind him, and its appearance could not be seen clearly. However, it gave off an extremely huge feeling as though it could contain all things. Vajra divine power, sea of all rivers aspect. Hui Zhen's series of violent attacks were all contained by Chu Xiu's sea of all rivers aspect. However, Chu Xiu was not familiar with using this dharma, and its defensive ability was far weaker than Chu Xiu's Dugu seal. It only lasted for a short while before it was completely defeated by Hui Zhen. However, this was enough. At this moment, Chu Xiu had already condensed his devil chi to the extreme, and the killing intent of the selfless killing fist fused with the monstrous devil chi. As Chu Xiu's punch landed, a realistic yet illusory devil god's roar rang out around him. When this punch landed, the devil chi and evil chi suddenly erupted, and the Buddha light was torn apart. The two-faced Vajra department behind Hui Zhen immediately collapsed. Moreover, this was not the end. An angry Wisdom King's shadow appeared behind Chu Xiu, and a righteous chi palm print landed, directly blasting Hui Zhen away, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. Hell-suppressing Wisdom King form. Hui Zhen's eyes revealed a look of horror. This is my Buddhist cultivation technique. Who exactly are you? In fact, when Chu Xiu had just made his move, Hui Zhen had already sensed a trace of Buddhist cultivation technique from the person in front of him. Although the great Vajra divine power mainly cultivated one's own strength, Huizhen could still sense some traces of Buddhist cultivation technique. However, later on, Chushio had used the Mara Vajra form, which also made Huizhen subconsciously think that Chushio was a member of the sixth demon sect. It was not until now that Chushio had used the hell-suppressing Wisdom King form that Huizhen was sure that this Chushio had definitely cultivated Buddhist cultivation technique. Chushio's figure was like the wind, devil chi surging, and his killing intent exploding. As he attacked wildly, he said, "I've said it before, go down and ask your Buddha." However, there doesn't seem to be any Buddha down there. It's the same if you ask Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. They are all from your Buddhist lineage. I believe he will be very happy to answer your questions. Huizhen was forced to retreat step by Chushio's attacks. His internal organs were shaken, and while resisting, blood could not help but flow out of his mouth. Chushio's actions could be considered bullying the elderly, constantly depleting the other party's strength and vitality. For a martial artist like Huizhen who was at the end of his lifespan, he was bound to become weaker the more he fought. However, Chushio did not feel guilty. Chushio had never taken the so-called dignity of the martial Tao seriously. To him, the martial Tao was just a method to kill his enemies. If he won, he would stand; if he died, he would lie down. As long as he could get rid of the enemy in front of him, Chushio had always been unscrupulous. This old monk Huizhen had a grudge with him for killing his disciple. Could be said that they could not live under the same sky. Although Chushio was using Guanxiu to temporarily suppress this matter, as long as this old monk Huizhen was still alive, he was like a time bomb that could suddenly explode at any time. After being continuously suppressed by Chushio, Huizhen's eyes also revealed a hint of determination. People were afraid of death, but Huizhen was not. In theory, a martial artist at the unity of heaven and man realm could live for 200 years, but in reality, there were not many who could live to 200 years old. Huizhen had already lived for more than 180 years, which was almost enough. Back when he was at the Great Light Temple, he had already felt that his lifespan was about to be exhausted. He had long been prepared to wait for death. However, Huizhen's only pity was that his disciple Ming Chen had clearly improved his talent and strength, but in the end he had died a violent death. Huizhen could not avenge Ming Chen, but he believed that the others in the Vajra Institute would not forget. Now, this battlefield of the righteous and demonic Tao war on floating Jade Mountain was not a bad choice as his final resting place. Huizhen had joined the Great Light Temple since he was young. He had spent his entire life exterminating demons and protecting the Tao, killing countless evil demons and murderers. Now that he could drag a demonic Tao expert to the grave with him, he died a worthy death. Every person who was not afraid of death was very terrifying. Even if Huizhen's qi and blood were currently declining, once he began to fight with his life on the line, not to mention Chushio who could not unleash his full strength, even Chushio at his peak would have to retreat. Huizhen put his palms together, and his entire body burned with a scorching Buddha's flame, which rose into the sky and enveloped Huizhen within it. The Buddha's flame burned the last of Huizhen's qi, blood, and essence. However, Huizhen was not as ferocious and terrifying as other martial artists who burned their qi and blood to fight for their lives. Instead, his originally shriveled body was filled with strength, as though he had recovered to the peak of his prime. Nirvana and Buddhahood, the ultimate sublimation. Huizhen's nirvana flame could not allow him to be reborn, but it could allow him to return to his peak for a period of time. Although it was only for a short period of time, it was enough for Huizhen. As the palm fell, the huge Vajra palm print fell with a loud bang, accompanied by a scorching flame and made a loud sonic boom. The strong pressure caused Chushio to retreat step by step. He condensed the form of all rivers into the sea to resist, but it was almost instantly destroyed by this palm. The strong palm print did not seem to have the slightest hindrance as it attacked towards Chushio. Frowning, Chushio did not retreat but advanced instead. Since he could not avoid it, then he would take it head-on. The devil's qi and blood condensed into one, and as the fist fell, there was a faint wail of evil spirits and the roar of demons. The fist that condensed the strength of Chushio's entire body collided with Huizhen's palm, and suddenly there was a loud bang. Huizhen's figure took a step back, while Chushio flew back more than 10 feet, letting out a muffled groan. Under his black iron mask, a trace of blood had already seeped out. At his peak, Huizhen was a great expert in the oneness of heaven and men realm, and he even had the strength to break through to the martial Tao Grandmaster realm. In other words, even if Huizhen was compared to the current Mr. Lu at his peak, he was probably not much better. Fighting against such an existence, Chushio was at a disadvantage in all aspects. On the other hand, Hui Jin did not stop moving and directly attacked Chu Xiu again. He did not have much time left. The boundless Buddha's flame condensed into the shape of a Buddhist commandment blade, which was held in Hui Jin's hand. The Vajra blade with a merciful heart. The merciful demon slayer blade. Hui Jin had practiced this blade for hundreds of years, but in the end he abandoned the blade because the key to this blade was not the blade, but the merciful and murderous blade intent. Chapter 406. Hui Jin's merciful demon slayer saber had been cultivated for hundreds of years. This saber technique was not very famous in the Great Light Temple. It was evolved from the Great Light Temple's merciful saber, and it was considered a mid-level martial arts technique. However, any martial arts technique that had been cultivated for hundreds of years was extremely terrifying. Hui Jin's merciful demon slayer saber was such a technique. The saber fell. Although this saber carried a majestic and powerful force, the core of it was merciful to stop killing. To stop killing by killing to save the world. The moment Chu Xiu was targeted by the merciful demon slayer's saber, his figure began to retreat. Hui Jin, the old monk, wanted to fight to the death with him, but Chu Xiu did not want to fight to the death with Hui Jin. He was here to resolve trouble, not to cause trouble. Based on Hui Jin's current state, even if Chu Xiu were to immediately escape, Hui Jin, who had already ignited his blood essence, would not be able to return to the Temple of Great Light alive. However, it was obvious that Hui Jin did not think so. He had made up his mind to kill. Perhaps from Hui Jin's point of view, it was already fortunate that he could fight to the death with these demonic slayers on the battlefield and not on a bed. If he could drag this demonic slayer down with him, it would be a great blessing. All the demonic qi and evil qi around Chu Xiu gathered into one and exploded. However, they were all extinguished by the saber. The power of this saber was somewhat beyond Chu Xiu's imagination. This old monk's desperate attack was truly terrifying. Did he have to return to his original identity? Chu Xiu squinted his eyes and suddenly took a step forward. He performed the heaven's sun gazing at air. In Chu Xiu's eyes, Hui Jin's saber was like a dense silk thread that attacked him from all directions. Chu Xiu had already performed the heaven's sun gazing at air to the extreme. Countless possible trajectories in the future were deduced by Chu Xiu, but 99% of the results were that he would not be able to block it. Even if he could block the rest, the price he had to pay would not be low. There was no perfect technique in this world. However, with Chu Xiu's current strength, he could not find a loophole in Hui Jin's technique. Or rather, even if he found a loophole, he could not take advantage of it. The heaven's sun gazing at air was only an auxiliary technique. It could tell you the future, but the one who truly changed the future was yourself. The heaven's sun gazing at air was only an auxiliary type technique. At this moment, Chu Xiu suddenly thought of something. He abruptly raised his head and used his original tone to speak into Hui Jin's ear. As a master, you're much stronger than your disciple. Back then, when I killed your disciple, I didn't use much strength, but now you're able to force me to this extent. It's not easy at all. Hui Jin's heart suddenly trembled when she heard this voice. Her gaze towards Chu Xiu was filled with shock. Although Hui Jin had not made a move in the arena earlier, he had heard Chu Xiu's voice. Thus, he had almost instantly figured out who the person in front of him was. In an instant, countless thoughts flashed through Hui Jin's mind. Some were happy while some were angry. He was happy that he could really kill Chu Xiu this time and avenge his disciple. He was angry that Chu Xiu was so bold. He turned out to be a member of the Diabolism. The righteous and Diabolism were irreconcilable. If he had known that Chu Xiu was a member of the Diabolism, he would not have been unable to avenge his disciple for such a long time. The Guanzhong torture room's torturer, Chu Xiu, killing Ming Chen, and the Diabolism's murderer, Chu Xiu, killing Ming Chen were two different things. If he had known Chu Xiu's identity, even if Su Yun personally came to plead for him, Chu Xiu would definitely die. However, Hui Jin did not realize that he had thought so many things in the moment of the battle. This also caused a slight change in the momentum of the knife in his hand. It was a very subtle pause and change. If it had been before, Chu Xiu would never have noticed such a subtle change. However, when Chu Xiu used the heaven's sun gazing at air skill to fight with Fang Qishao's karma swordsmanship, his own cultivation of the heaven's sun gazing at air skill could be said to have made great progress. At this moment, Chu Xiu had already grasped that subtle change. In an instant, Chu Xiu straightened his palm as a knife. The power of his qi and blood spread and burned. It intertwined with the devil qi and turned into a dazzling devil knife that slashed down. Chu Xiu would rarely burn his qi and blood. He was a person who dared to fight with his life in times of danger, but at the same time he was also a very rational person. Burning his qi and blood would not only cause internal injuries and damage his foundation, but it would also cause his strength to drop to the extreme in a short time. But now, in the face of the old monk Hui Zhen, Chu Xiu had to burn his essence blood in order to be safe. Chu Xiu grasped that slight loophole. Under the surging devil knife, the qi and blood mixed with devil qi forcibly tore apart Hui Zhen's knife force and cut his mercy knife into pieces. The devil qi and evil qi entered Hui Zhen's body and left a hideous knife mark on Hui Zhen's chest. He was directly sent flying. A loud noise was heard and Hui Zhen fell to the ground. His eyes showed a hint of unwillingness and relief. In the end he was no longer alive. As a master, Hui Zhen was not able to avenge his disciple until the last moment of his life. This was Hui Zhen's unwillingness. But as for Hui Zhen himself, he had fought for the Great Light Temple his whole life. He eliminated the devil and protected the Tao. At this time, dying on the battlefield of the righteous and demonic path was considered a perfect achievement. In this life he would no longer have to worry about all kinds of Jianghu killings. It could be considered a release. At this time Hui Zhen's death also attracted the attention of many people present. The disciples of the Great Light Temple were all fiercely fighting with the demonic path ancient martial art practitioners present. Apart from the people from the 5 major sword sects, they were the ones who fought the most vigorously. Those who did not know would have thought that this righteous and demonic path great battle was started by them. When Hui Zhen died, neither Su Yan nor Su Du noticed. At this time, they were all fiercely fighting with the demonic path grandmaster in front of them. It was really a battle of life and death. They were not like Xiahou Zhen before his son died, who held back and went easy on him. Therefore they did not pay attention to what was happening in front of them. But as the other ancient martial art practitioners from the Great Light Temple shouted, they realized that Hui Zhen had actually died here. A hint of anger appeared in Su Yan's eyes. Although Hui Zhen was 1 generation younger than him, he had taken good care of him when he was young. He had brought Hui Zhen here to let him relax and forget about Mingqin's death. He did not expect Hui Zhen to die on floating Jade Mountain just like that. This made Su Yan feel that Hui Zhen's death was caused by him. Therefore Su Yan even wanted to immediately kill Chu Xiu. However, his opponent was a martial Dao grandmaster from the 6th demon sect. The strength of the 6th demon sect's ancient martial art practitioners might be a little weaker in a head-on fight, but when combined with their strange methods, they were very troublesome to deal with, leaving people helpless. Just by looking at the battle between Shen Baochen and the sect leader of the 6th demon sect, Yi Buoxuan, anyone with a discerning eye could see that Shen Baochen's strength was actually far superior to Yi Buoxuan's. In the end he was entangled by Yi Buoxuan for such a long time. One could imagine how difficult it was to deal with the 6th demon sect in this aspect. Su Yan was about to break free, but he was instantly stopped by the martial Dao grandmaster from the 6th demon sect. This made him furious, but there was nothing he could do. On the other side, after killing Hui Zhen, Chu Xiu also suffered some damage to his vitality. At the same time he also felt a powerful pressure and killing intent landing on him. It did not feel good to be targeted by a martial Dao grandmaster powerhouse. Chu Xiu also had a premonition that he should keep a low profile. Therefore Chu Xiu directly turned around and fled. He informed Mr. Liu and asked the people from the phaseless demon sect to cover him while he fled to the edge, changed his clothes and took off his mask. He became the Chu Xiu from the Guanzhong torture room again, except that his face was slightly paler than before. After changing back to his original identity, Chu Xiu did not continue to attack. Instead, he moved closer to the people from the World Alliance. The entire floating Jade Mountain was in a state of chaos. Only the people from the World Alliance and a few other sects, as well as famous rogue cultivators, wanted to maintain a neutral stance, so they did not attack. The righteous and demon sects did not make things difficult for them either. The people from the 5 great sword sects wanted to drag people down with them. It was enough that there were so many righteous sects participating, so they did not care about their numbers. The people from the demon sect were not idiots. They really did not want to provoke anyone. This time, the martial artists from the demon sect were only here for the demonic creation flag. Since the people from the World Alliance were not going to attack, they had nothing better to do than to provoke them. Therefore, in the entire floating Jade Mountain, there was only this small area that was peaceful. At this moment, seeing Chu Xiu come over with a pale face, as if he had overexerted himself, Xia Xiaolu was surprised. He was about to open his mouth to ask something, but he swallowed the words that were just about to leave his mouth. Xia Xiaolu was a man of few words, but he was also a discerning person. He knew what to ask and what not to ask. The battle between the righteous and demon sects was a complete mess. Who knew who Chu Xiu had gone to kill? Naturally, since Chu Xiu had not called for him, he would not say anything. Therefore, the question he was about to ask turned into a casual chat. Brother Chu, both the righteous and demon sects have sent out so many experts. Who do you think will win in the end? Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes. There is no winner. Both sides are losers. Xia Xiaolu was stunned. He did not understand why Chu Xiu would say that. Either they won or they lost or they tied. In the end, Chu Xiu said that both sides lost. What did that mean? However, before Xia Xiaolu could ask any questions, Chu Xiu said, "Just wait and see. It is almost over. When the time comes, the results will naturally be clear." The result of this righteous and demon sects war was not something Chu Xiu said. It was bound to happen. Chu Xiu's arrival caused some changes to the righteous and demon sects war. Perhaps those who should have died did not die, but those who should have lived died. Those who should have come did not, but many who should not have come did. However, Chu Xiu's butterfly effect was limited. He could only influence a small number of people. For example, Dong Huang Tai, an existence at the true fire soul refinement realm, Chu Xiu definitely could not influence him. The true power ratio between the righteous and demon sects had not changed, so the final result should not have changed. Chapter 407. Not long after Chu Xiu finished speaking to Xia Xiaolu, the situation on the battlefield changed, and this change started from Dong Huang Tai's side. In reality, Dong Huang Tai rarely fought in the Jianghu. The last time he fought was when he fought against the Great Light Temple over 20 years ago, so his ranking on the Longhu leaderboard had already been erased by Wind-Sweeping Tower. Many people in the Jianghu knew that this generation's Dong Huang Tai was very strong, but no one knew exactly how strong he was. In addition, the current leader of the moon-worshipping cult, Yi Xiaonan, was just too strong. The moon-worshipping cult was already the #1 sect in the demonic path, and Yi Xiaonan was naturally the #1 person in the demonic path. Under the shadow of a powerhouse of this level, no matter what Dong Huang Tai did, it was inconspicuous. No matter how many halos he had, they would all be overshadowed by Yi Xiaonan. It was only now that everyone knew why Dong Huang Tai was known as the strongest Dong Huang Tai in history. More than 200 years ago, the famous Jiannan king Duguli was suppressed to the extreme by Dong Huang Tai, and he could barely fight back. Later, Wind and Cloud Sword Mound even invited the world-famous murderous weapon, Decimating Abyss, to be powered by the blood of the previous leader of Wind and Cloud Sword Mound, the personal disciple of the old sword god Guemo Yanji. They worked together to kill Dong Huang Tai, but they could only barely hold on. But now that stalemate was broken by Dong Huang Tai. Perhaps Dong Huang Tai was getting impatient with the stalemate, so he finally used his trump card. Amidst the powerful sword chi of Duguli and Decimating Abyss, Dong Huang Tai's wide sleeves folded up. As his body slowly turned, black demonic flames were flung out from his wide sleeves. The demonic flames could burn the heavens and devour the earth, using everything as nourishment. Whether it was the world's Yuan Qi or Duguli sword Qi, everything could be devoured by the demonic flames. In the end, the overwhelming demonic flames had even enveloped more than half of floating Jade Mountain, as if the sun had fallen. Dong Huang Tai stood in the center of the demonic flames. Everyone could only see a black shadow controlling the demonic flames, like a god or a demon. The boundless devil flames devoured Duguli's sword energy and enveloped his entire body. Even the power of the ominous weapon, Decimating Abyss, was engulfed by the devil flames. Even the body of the sword showed signs of melting. Yanji suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and his face turned extremely pale. In front of that terrifying devil flame, his connection with the extinguishing abyss sword had been completely severed. What kind of martial arts is this? Duguli couldn't help but shout out in shock. The warriors of the 5 major sword sects and the righteous path were all shocked. They were not making a fuss, but they had never seen or even heard of the martial arts that Dong Huang Tai displayed. Dong Huang Tai stood in the center of the boundless devil flames and said indifferently, "Cult Master's Heaven-Mending Heart Sutra is world-shaking and makes ghosts and gods weep. How is my burning sky treasured mirror now? Although I am not as brilliant as the sect master, this burning sky treasure mirror is the result of 100 years of dedicated research by combining the martial arts of the Eastern Emperor Tai of the moon-worshipping cult and countless ancient books. It was only a few years ago that I finally completed it. Duguli and that little kid who controls the Decimating Abyss sword, you can be proud because you are the first people in the entire Jianghu to experience the power of the burning sky mirror." Hearing this, everyone present fell silent. Moon-worshipping cult's momentum had been formed. A sect's strength was never because of one person, but because of a group of people. In the past, Duguwewa was invincible in the world. But after Duguwewa was gone, the Kunlun demon sect was able to single-handedly fight against the entire pugilistic world. Now the world knew that cult master Yi Xiaonan was incomparably powerful, and even defeated countless great light temple masters in a battle 20 years ago. Now he was ranked on the legendary list, and could be said to be a top powerhouse in the Jianghu. But moon-worshipping cult strength was also due to the contributions of other people. Yi Xiaonan's heaven-mending heart sutra was not passed down from ancient times, but was continuously researched and supplemented by successive cult masters. Finally, in Yi Xiaonan's generation, it was finally perfected and successfully cultivated. It had the shocking power to destroy the world, mend the heavens and reverse the universe. And now Dong Huang Tai's burning sky mirror was clearly the same. It was created by him based on the techniques and ancient books of Dong Huang Tai. It was incomparably powerful, and now it seemed to have the power to burn the heavens and devour the earth. Creating a cultivation method was very simple. Let alone a martial Dao grandmaster, even an ordinary martial artist could occasionally have a flash of inspiration and create some moves. However, the difference was whether the cultivation method you created was strong enough and whether it was qualified to be passed down. Predecessors were not necessarily stronger than modern people, and ancient techniques were not necessarily stronger than the techniques created and researched by modern martial artists. It was just that the techniques that could be passed down from ancient times were all fine products. But whether it was ancient times or now, a martial artist who could create a powerful technique must be a martial arts master with amazing talent. Yi Xiaonan was such an existence, and so was Dong Huang Tai. Dong Huang Tai and the other 9 god Magisprius were named after the 9 gods in the legends of the Chu land. Legend had it that Dong Huang Tai was the sun god, the emperor who controlled the power of the sun, and so on. So the burning sky mirror that Dong Huang Tai had created could be said to be specially created for god Magisprius of Dong Huang Tai's lineage. Even if Dong Huang Tai died, the next generation of Dong Huang Tai could still cultivate the burning sky mirror. It could be said that Dong Huang Tai alone had raised the strength of all the Dong Huang Tai of moon-worshipping cult by a large margin. For the current righteous sects, they did not know whether the devil path had risen or not, but the strength of moon-worshipping cult had far exceeded their imagination. And just as everyone was still in shock, Dong Huang Tai's figure rose into the air, and the burning sky demon flame around him condensed into a point and exploded with a loud bang. Du Guli could not hold on any longer. His sword momentum collapsed, and his figure was sent flying by Dong Huang Tai. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his face was pale. His burning sky sword technique was also incomparably powerful, but it was also a flame. Now, the burning sky sword technique was suppressed to the extreme by Dong Huang Tai's burning sky mirror. Perhaps there was a reason for this, but the most fundamental reason was still the person. They were both refined by true fire, but he, Du Guli, was not as good as Dong Huang Tai. And at this time, because the extinguishing abyss sword was no longer under Yanji's control, it was still flying around randomly. Dong Huang Tai coldly snorted, and the burning sky demon flame completely enveloped the extinguishing abyss sword. In an instant, a powerful heat descended, and actually completely melted the extinguishing abyss sword. With a wave of one hand, the extinguishing abyss sword that had already turned into a ball of molten iron was remolded. A long blade covered in black flames was born from the demonic flames, and Dong Huang Tai grabbed it in his hand. In an instant, a ferocious aura erupted. This extinguishing abyss sword, which even swordsmiths could not refine in the past, was now completely melted in the hands of Dong Huang Tai's burning sky demon flame, and was even remolded. Dong Huang Tai said indifferently, "This extinguishing abyss sword is not bad. Your storm sword tomb has been keeping it for so many years, but you still haven't figured it out. Now it's time for a new owner. From now on, there will no longer be a extinguishing abyss sword in the martial world, only a burning sky blade." On the side of the righteous sects, their faces were ashen, especially those from the 5 great sword sects. This time they were defeated, completely defeated. Duguli had been severely injured, and Storm Sword Tomb had also lost their extinguishing abyss sword. They had lost miserably. However, at this moment, Shin Baochen, who had been fighting with Yi Buoxuan of the 6th demon sect, suddenly exploded. Shin Baochen was already very impatient with Yi Buoxuan. Coupled with the fact that Duguli had actually been defeated, he had no choice but to use his trump card. Shin Baochen's sword and bamboo flute hung on his body all year round. Everyone thought that the bamboo flute was just something that Shin Baochen usually played with, but now Shin Baochen held the bamboo flute in his hand and began to play it. The moment the sound rang out, Yi Buxuan's expression suddenly changed. This was because what Shin Baochen was playing was not the pleasant sound of the flute, but a murderous sword dance. The sound of the flute transformed into countless hazy shadows. These shadows circled between the heavens and the earth, using their thoughts to draw upon the power of the heavens and earth to transform into dancing swords. Thousands of swords merged into one, the Life Sword Dance. Under the Life Sword Dance, Yi Buxuan's 6 heavens of the Desire Realm was completely shattered. The Life Sword Dance encompassed and destroyed everything. Yi Buxuan's techniques could not defend against it at all. In the Sword Dance, Yi Buxuan retreated step by step. The worlds in front of him evolved and collapsed, but he was still killed until he vomited blood and retreated. His strength was originally not as good as Shin Baochen's. Just now they had only been in a stalemate. However, now that Shin Baochen had suddenly displayed his might, he could no longer hold on. The burning sky demon flame descended. The pitch-black demon flame collided with the Life Sword Dance. The demon flame burned the sky and finally blocked the killing power of the sword dance. However, the burning sky demon flame that could melt everything could not melt Shin Baochen's Life Sword Dance. Dong Huangtai narrowed his eyes and looked at Shin Baochen. This is formed from the mental imprints and sword will left behind by the past cultivators of the Forgotten Sword Hut? The Life Sword Dance. Haha, it is just an external object. They are already dead, but in the end they still have to fight to the death for unfilial descendants like you. You righteous sects are even crueler than the demonic path. Shin Baochen held the bamboo flute in his hand and said lightly, the ancestors of the Forgotten Sword Hut left this Life Sword Dance to protect the common people. They have the common people in their hearts, which is why they are so obsessed. To let it be covered in dust in the ancestral hall is a great disrespect to the ancestors. Dong Huangtai raised his eyebrows. Just now he had only casually mocked him. However, he also knew that this was a trump card left behind by the ancestors of the Forgotten Sword Hut. In the entire Forgotten Sword Hut, other than Shin Baochen, probably no one else could use this thing. To activate the mental imprints and sword will left behind by all the past cultivators of the Forgotten Sword Hut, one must have a powerful cultivation in the way of the sword and a clear sword heart that combined all the swordsmanship. Otherwise, once one of the swordsmanship clashed with you, not only would it hurt you, but it would also destroy the trump card left behind by the ancestors of the Forgotten Sword Hut. Chapter 408. The battle between the orthodox and diabolical lineages had reached its most intense moment. Dugu Li had been severely injured by Dong Huangtai, while Yi Buxuan had been injured by Shin Baochen. On the surface, both sides seemed to have suffered about the same amount of damage. The martial Dao grandmasters on both sides were already injured. There were also countless warriors at the Unity of Heaven and Man realm or the Five Chi's origin realm. It was abnormally tragic. In the current situation, continuing to fight would still result in both sides suffering losses. In the end, both sides would probably have to increase their strength. Moon-worshipping sects Yi Xiaonan had not made a move yet, nor had the old monsters of the hidden devil lineage. Similarly, on the side of the 5 major sword sects, Windcloud Sword Tomb, and the other sects had not used their full strength. Moreover, when the time came, it would not be a battle between the orthodox and diabolical lineages on floating Jade Mountain, but a battle between the orthodox and diabolical lineages. Both the diabolical lineages and the orthodox lineages did not want to repeat this pugilistic world catastrophe. Therefore, both sides had agreed to temporarily hold back. Dong Huangtai stood with his hands behind his back and said in a low voice, "If you've had enough, then hand over the demonic creation flag. If you haven't had enough, then fine. The diabolical lineage will still accompany you to the end." Shin Baochen was silent for a moment. Just as everyone thought he would say something, Shin Baochen swung his hand and threw the demonic creation flag to Dong Huangtai. "You've already gotten what you want. Leave floating Jade Mountain or the 5 major sword sects will accompany you to the end." Everyone present was puzzled. Shin Baochen had been too straightforward. He had given the demonic path the demonic creation flag without even saying a word. Was he admitting defeat? However, some knowledgeable warriors agreed with Shin Baochen's actions. In the current situation, there was no point in delaying the handing over of the demonic creation flag. The orthodox lineages had already lost. Since they did not want to fight the diabolical lineages to the end, there was no benefit in continuing to be entangled. It would only increase the number of casualties and become a laughing stock. Dong Huangtai took the demonic creation flag, but there was no joy on his face. He swung the flag and instantly, demonic chi surged from floating Jade Mountain. Countless diabolical path warriors looked at Dong Huangtai. Dong Huangtai Shang waved the demonic creation flag one after another and led countless demonic Dao martial artists down the floating Jade Mountain like a receding tide. Although it seemed like the demonic path won on the surface, the demonic path had actually lost. Therefore there was no winner on either side. It was a lose-lose situation. This time, the 5 great sword sects wanted to use the good fortune heavenly demon flag to lure the demonic path to take the bait. They wanted to take this opportunity to establish their might and compete for the position of leader of the 5 great sword sections. As a result, the leaders of the 5 great sword sects had yet to be decided, but their might had been established. However, it was not them who established it to the demonic path but the demonic path. The demonic creation flag had fallen back into the hands of moon-worshipping cult. On the other hand, the demonic lineage that seemed to be in the limelight had successfully obtained the fortune heavenly demon flag. However, this was not a good thing for the moon-worshipping cult or the entire demonic lineage. Ever since the destruction of the Kunlun devil cult, the devil Dao had been keeping a low profile and hiding their strength. In the end, after the battle at Floating Jade Mountain, a large portion of the demonic Dao's strength had been revealed. This would definitely cause the righteous Dao's warriors to be wary and even view them as enemies. When that time came, the demonic Dao would not be as relaxed as it was now. After all, although the demonic Dao looked easy to bully back then, they had restrained their foundation and were confident enough to do so. Now, the righteous Dao sects would not continue to allow the demonic Dao to develop as they had in the past. They would either suppress or restrict them. After the great battle at Floating Jade Mountain, everyone was certain that the conflict between the righteous Dao and the demonic Dao would intensify. The underworld would most likely not be peaceful again. Of course, this did not matter to the warriors from the small sects or the lone cultivators present. They were warriors at the bottom of the underworld and could not see that far ahead. As long as they could reap the benefits in front of them, that was enough. Now that the demonic Dao had retreated, the 5 great sword sects should also express their gratitude. It had to be known that this situation had been laid out by the 5 great sword sections. In the end, it had evolved into a war between the righteous Dao and the demonic Dao. The righteous Dao and the demonic Dao could not coexist. Everyone could help the demonic Dao, but for this reason they had suffered heavy casualties. If the 5 great sword sects did not express their gratitude, wouldn't that be too much? Of course, if the 5 great sword sects were thick-skinned, they could really not express their gratitude. However, if the 5 great sword sects were to do such a thing, would they still want their reputation? Therefore, after Xin Baochen and the other true fire spirit refinement realm warriors left, Han Tingyi cupped his hands at everyone present and said, "Everyone, we are extremely grateful for helping the 5 great sword sects to fight against the demonic Dao together. The 5 great sword sects will send gifts to all the warriors who helped in the great battle at Floating Jade Mountain. Those who successfully killed the demonic Dao warriors will also be heavily rewarded by the 5 great sword sects." The 5 great sword sects' foundation was not weak. They could afford to take out some gifts. The most important thing was their attitude. Moreover, for a sect at the level of the Great Light Temple, they did not care about the gifts from the 5 great sword sections. As long as the 5 great sword sects' attitude was sincere, that was enough. However, for those itinerant warriors or warriors from small sects, even if the 5 great sword sects casually took out something, it would be regarded as a treasure. Therefore these people were very excited. Han Tingyi arranged for people to take the items, while he personally took the treasures that he had prepared beforehand and handed them to the warriors of the various sections. They were distributed according to the number of enemies they killed. Han Tingyi was not afraid that these people would falsely claim the battle merits. Most of the warriors who came from the large sects still cared about their reputation. Moreover, Floating Jade Mountain was only so big. Most people saw who killed who, so it was basically impossible to falsely claim it. Han Tingyi took out a few secret boxes and handed them to the Great Light Temple's Su Yan. He cupped his hands and said, "The Great Light Temple has acted righteously this time. The 5 great sword sects are extremely grateful." Han Tingyi's words were sincere. In this great battle at Floating Jade Mountain, the Great Light Temple was the one who put in the most effort. They practically killed those demonic Dao villains with all their might. In terms of exterminating demons, the Great Light Temple really did not hide anything. However, the losses on the Great Light Temple's side were not small either. Other than Huijin, who was killed by Chu Xiu, The Great Light Temple also lost a warrior at the Unity of Heaven and Man realm, as well as several warriors at the Five Cheese Origin realm and the Three Flower Summit realm. Su Yin put his palms together and said with a solemn expression, "The Great Light Temple did not act because of so-called loyalty. It was only to exterminate demons and protect the Tao. This time, even if the 5 great sword sects were not in charge and it was the Taoist lineage, the Great Light Temple would also not hold back and kill those demonic Tao villains." Su Yan's words made Han Tingyi feel a little awkward. Su Du chuckled and said, "I say, junior brother, you speak so bluntly. It's very embarrassing." Su Yan glanced at him and said, "A monk does not lie. The people of the Great Light Temple have always been this straightforward. I can't say those polite words that pretend to be polite." With Su Du's interruption, Han Tingyi became even more awkward. He could only throw out a few polite words and immediately turn to the others. When it was Chu Xiu's turn, his reward was also personally handed out by Han Tingyi. This time, Chu Xiu was representing the Guanzhong torture room, so he naturally had the right to be treated like this by Han Tingyi. Looking at Chu Xiu, Han Tingyi's attitude was quite good. He even let Chu Xiu choose his own reward. "Chu, you won 2nd place in the arena this time. The reward for the blood transformation blade is what you deserve. Also, you stood on the side of the orthodox path this time and killed Chou Xiangzi of the 5 Poison sect, eliminating this cruel and ruthless demonic Tao villain. Are you prepared to get medicinal pills or techniques or something else?" Han Tingyi's attitude towards Chu Xiu was naturally not because he appreciated Chu Xiu and saw him in a different light, but because of Chu Xiu's previous attitude. The Guanzhong torture room was not considered the orthodox path or the demonic Tao, but Chu Xiu had stood on their side and even killed Chou Xiangzi, who was quite famous in the 5 Poison sect. In Han Tingyi's opinion, Chu Xiu was a young chivalrous man with a righteous heart. Although his actions were a little extreme, he was still very clear when it came to righteousness. As a martial Tao grandmaster, Han Tingyi naturally would not understand juniors like Chu Xiu in detail. Therefore he had only heard about them through hearsay. The people of Jianghu all said that Chu Xiu was ruthless and resolute in his actions, but now the impression of Chu Xiu in Han Tingyi's eyes had been reversed. There was nothing wrong with being ruthless and acting extreme. Which young man was not hot-blooded? The people of Jianghu pursued a quick revenge. As long as they could stand on the side of righteousness, there would be no problem. Chu Xiu cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, Senior Han. Since my reward is the blood-killing saber, why don't Senior Han give me the demonic blood technique that goes with the blood-killing saber?" Han Tingyi frowned and said, "You want the demonic blood technique? It's not that our 5 major sword sects are stingy and don't want to give it to you, but the demonic blood technique is very evil. In battle, it absorbs the opponent's qi and blood and fuses it with demonic energy to enhance its own strength. In this way it can use the blood-killing saber without limit. This kind of martial art is also an extremely evil path in the demonic Tao. I gave it to you, one is against the harmony of heaven, and the other is also because I am afraid that you will fall into the demonic Tao." Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "Senior Han, I have also learned many demonic arts. In my opinion there are good and evil people, but there are no good and evil martial arts. Even if I cultivate a demonic art, I will use it on the righteous path, using it to kill the demonic Tao. Then it will be a righteous martial art. Moreover, there are many people on the righteous path who cultivate demonic arts. Moreover, Senior Han does not need to worry that I will fall into the demonic Tao. I have cultivated demonic arts before, and aren't I still fine now? As a martial artist, if I am affected by a martial art, then my will is too weak." Nie Donglu, who was familiar with Chu Xiu's character, had an awkward expression when he heard Chu Xiu's words. He sneered in his heart. "You Chu Xiu have walked all kinds of paths, but you have not walked the righteous path." However, at this time, no one went to undermine Chu Xiu because that would only offend Han Tingyi and the 5 major sword sects. It would also be easy for Chu Xiu to bite back and slander them. Chapter 409. Chu Xiu's words were filled with righteousness and awe-inspiring, and Han Ting felt that it made some sense. In fact, apart from the more extreme sects like Buddhism, most of the martial arts sects in Jianghu would not use martial arts to restrict a person. Although the martial arts of the demonic path were evil, they had powerful explosive power. Therefore, many warriors secretly learned some demonic martial arts as a trump card. This was a very normal thing. Moreover, the martial arts of the demonic path also included some martial arts from Taoism or Buddhism. How could the two sides be so clearly differentiated? This time, Chu Xiu was on the side of the 5 major sword sects, and his performance was very good. The great demonic blood technique was left in the forgetful sword hut. Other than being sealed in the armory and eating dust, it was useless. Han Tingyi thought about it and threw the 2 martial arts to Chu Xiu. He said in a low voice, "Chu, you are a young talent on the Longhu list. Your future is limitless. Although you have learned demonic martial arts, I hope that you will not fall into the demonic path in the future." Chu Xiu nodded and put on a righteous expression. As for what he was thinking in his heart, it was not something that others could know. After the items were distributed, the 5 major sword sects set up a banquet and invited the warriors of the righteous sects present. However, the great battle between the righteous and demonic sects had just ended, and the people of the righteous sects had also seen the power of the rise of the demonic path. They were now busy reporting what had happened here back to their sections. How could they have the time to eat? Therefore, the majority of the people directly bade farewell and left. Chu Xiu was also the same. He didn't want to sit and eat with the martial artists of the righteous path sections. It was estimated that there were many people who didn't like him. After a few days, the details of the great battle on floating Jade Mountain spread in the Jianghu. Everyone's first impression was that the Jianghu would not be peaceful again. In the past, the demonic path had declined, and the righteous sects had lived comfortably. When they had the time or the opportunity to kill some lone demonic path villains, it was not bad to make a name for themselves. But now, the demonic path had completely risen, and the hidden forces in the past would gradually surface. At that time, the conflict between the righteous and demonic branches would intensify. In short, it would not be a good thing. Of course, the most unlucky among them should be the forgetful sword hut. Even many people in the Jianghu felt pity for the forgetful sword hut. The most outstanding performance in this battle was not Wei Shuya, who was the last survivor of the 9 heavens demons, but East Emperor Tai of the moon-worshipping sect. The demonic moon-worshipping sect was monstrous, and East Emperor Tai was even more amazing. This also allowed the people to see the terror of the moon-worshipping sect. This generation of moon-worshipping cult was even the most powerful generation in the history of moon-worshipping cult. Yi Xiaonan was shockingly talented, and his heaven-mending heart sutra was unparalleled under the heavens. He was the most revered person in the martial world, and could be said to be the #1 person of the demonic path. Eastern Monarch Tai was the most powerful god Magus in the history of moon-worshipping cult. Once he took out the sky-burning mirror, he was able to suppress Du Guli. There was also the most mysterious high priest of the moon-worshipping sect. Although he had only fought a few times, he held the most mysterious and powerful trump card of the moon-worshipping sect. With these 3 people, even if the holy maiden of the moon-worshipping sect had not grown up, the strength of the moon-worshipping sect was shocking enough. Unfortunately, the forgetful sword hut happened to be in West Chu, and also happened to be next to the moon-worshipping sect. With such a terrifying neighbor, it was likely that the forgetful sword hut would not have an easy time in the future. Chu Xiu did not care about the rumors and disputes in the Jianghu. After leaving floating Jade Mountain, Mr. Lu sent someone to pass a message to Chu Xiu to return to the Guanzhong torture room on his own. The demonic path had just been in the limelight, and now it was time to deal with it in a low-key manner. So Chu Xiu did not delay and went straight to the Guanzhong torture room. The battle between the righteous and demonic paths on floating Jade Mountain did not affect the Guanzhong torture room much, so Guan Xiu did not ask too much. Moreover, as Chu Xiu became more and more famous outside, the people in the Guanzhong torture room also tacitly agreed that Chu Xiu was the face of the Guanzhong torture room in the outside world. There were not as many rumors as before. After returning to the Guanxi branch, the Ghost Hand King and Du Guangzhong told Chu Xiu some things that had happened in the Guanxi area recently, and they left directly so that they would not disturb Chu Xiu's cultivation. In fact, during this time, nothing major happened in the Guanxi area. The strength of Chu Xiu's subordinates was already strong enough, at least enough to suppress the Guanxi area. The most important thing was that Chu Xiu's reputation, or rather his ferocious reputation, was also great enough. Even if Chu Xiu was not in the Guanxi area now, the martial arts factions under him would not dare to cause any trouble. In his study, Chu Xiu took out the blood-killing blade and the great devil blood technique that he had obtained from the sitting sword hut and studied them carefully. This martial art was a secret technique of the Kunlun devil cult. When the two were combined, there was a total of 7 revolutions. It was definitely not weak. However, after reading it, Chu Xiu finally understood why Han Tingyi had sealed the great devil blood technique and not wanted to hand it over to him. This technique was indeed very evil. The blood-killing blade and the great devil blood technique were actually based on the latter. The function of the Great Devil Blood technique was to use devil chi to control blood. It was not only to control one's own blood, but also the blood of others. During a fight, one could absorb the power of the opponent's chi and blood to replenish one's own chi and blood. It was said to be extremely evil. When practiced to a great level, it was even possible to directly suck the opponent dry. The blood-killing blade, on the other hand, was a technique derived from the Great Devil Blood technique. It condensed a powerful chi and blood into a blade. When the blade was slashed out, the stronger the chi and blood power condensed, the fiercer the power of the blade. Moreover, the blood-killing blade could be used with one's own chi and blood. Naturally, it could also be used with the Great Devil Blood technique. Under normal circumstances, the two worked together. First, the Great Devil Blood technique would successfully absorb the opponent's chi and blood. Then, the blood-killing blade would condense the chi and blood into a blade to kill the enemy. It was powerful and did not consume one's own strength. On the contrary, if one didn't have the Great Devil Blood technique, then the blood-killing blade could only use one's own chi and blood to fight the enemy. Although the power of the blood-killing blade wouldn't be weak, it would still damage one's own body. Thus, one could only use it as a trump card to put one's life on the line. Although these two techniques were very evil, they suited Chu Xiu's taste. Regardless of whether the techniques he cultivated were good or evil, they only pursued one thing, and that was killing power. At this moment, a black mist suddenly rose from Chu Xiu's study. Mei Qinglian, who was wearing a fiery red dress and had an extremely gorgeous temperament, walked out of it. Chu Xiu also discovered that whenever Mei Qinglian saw him, she always seemed to like wearing this fiery red dress. It looked flirtatious but not seductive. Was there something particular about this? Chu Xiu cupped his hands and said, "Saintess, you are so well informed. I just came back and you came to me." Mei Qinglian leisurely walked to the chair beside Chu Xiu and sat down. With a trace of laziness in her voice, she said, "If you don't take the initiative to find me, then I can only take the initiative to find you." Chu Xiu smiled bitterly and said, "I want to come to you, but I don't want to cause a misunderstanding. Master Guan is my superior after all. I don't want to go to his wife." Mei Qinglian stretched out her slender jade-like finger and pointed at Chu Xiu. She said in disdain, "Don't think that I don't know what kind of morality you men have. What does the wife of a superior count for? Disciple and master? Disciple and master's wife? Don't you like this kind of thing?" Chu Xiu shrugged and said, "Unfortunately, I don't have a master and I don't have a master's wife." Mei Qinglian sneered, "Fortunately, you don't have a master. Otherwise, your master will die because of you sooner or later." Chu Xiu shrugged and didn't refute. In theory, he didn't have a chance to screw over his master, but he would screw over his father. His cheap father could also be said to have died because of him. After teasing Chu Xiu for a bit, Mei Qinglian's expression turned serious. "Actually, Lu Jin had already sent someone to inform me about the battle between the righteous and demonic paths on Floating Jade Mountain before you returned. Whether it was the Demonic Path Alliance meeting or the Righteous and Demonic Path War, you did well." Chu Xiu's expression didn't change. He said, "Thank you for your praise, Saintess. I'm just doing what I've been entrusted with. Since I represent the Yin Demon sect, I naturally won't embarrass them." Mei Qinglian said in a low voice, "You've also seen the grievances between the Yin Demon sect and the Bright Demon sect during the Demonic Tao Alliance. Previously you and I had a deal. Now that we're on the same side, I'll formally ask you, are you willing to stand on the side of the Yin Demon sect?" Previously, Mei Qinglian had classified Chu Xiu as a member of the Yin Demon sect, but that was what Mei Qinglian had said, not what Chu Xiu had personally admitted. Now that Chu Xiu had seen the strength of the Yin Demon sect and the Bright Demon sect, and he had also participated in the Demonic Tao Alliance, it was time for Chu Xiu to make his stand. Unlike Mr. Lu, Mei Qinglian had been a very suspicious person from the beginning. Perhaps this had something to do with what had happened to the Yin Demon sect in the past. The Yin Demon sect had fallen to this state and she, the Saintess, was the only one left. Mei Qinglian couldn't help but be suspicious. Chu Xiu didn't hesitate. He chuckled and said, "In the past, Saintess had said that I belonged to the Yin Demon sect. I have been from the beginning and I will still be in the future." Mei Qinglian raised her elegant eyebrows and said, "Aren't you tempted after seeing the strength of the Bright Demon sect? Not to mention the others, you've also seen the strength of the moon-worshipping sect. Yi Xiaonan is already a supreme figure in the martial arts world. Eastern Emperor Tai and the moon-worshipping sect's high priest are also extremely terrifying. If you join the moon-worshipping sect, even if you kill Ming Wang Zhongshuan, the moon-worshipping sect will still dare to protect you, let alone killing a martial monk from the Great Light Temple. With your identity as the successor of the Kunlun Devil cult and your ranking on the Longhu list, it won't be difficult for you to join the moon-worshipping sect. Chu Xiu shook his head and said, I don't have any other good points, but I know my own limits. How big your stomach is, how many bowls of rice you can eat. Otherwise you will really become an idiot. In the past, when the Kunlun Devil cult was still around, the moon-worshipping sect didn't care about it, let alone now that the Kunlun Devil cult is gone. From the beginning, I knew that I and the moon-worshipping sect are not the same kind of people. Chapter 410. Mei Qinglian was satisfied with Chu Xiu's answer. She didn't want the young expert that the Yinma clan had found and cultivated to fall into someone else's arms. It wasn't that the Yinma clan wasn't confident. It was just that the moon-worshipping cult was too strong. It was so strong that the Yinma clan felt threatened. It was good to enjoy the shade under a big tree. If Chu Xiu chose to join the moon-worshipping cult, Mei Qinglian would think that it was normal. Regardless of whether Chu Xiu was the direct descendant of the Kunlun Devil cult, the moon-worshipping cult would gladly accept him based on his current ranking of 6th on the Longhu list. However, since Chu Xiu had said this himself, Mei Qinglian wasn't afraid that Chu Xiu would do something treacherous. It wasn't that Mei Qinglian believed in Chu Xiu's character, but since Chu Xiu had made a promise, if he really joined the moon-worshipping cult in the future, Chu Xiu would have to face the hostility and pursuit of the entire Yinma clan. In fact, Chu Xiu didn't think so much. For Chu Xiu, his identity as the descendant of the Kunlun Devil cult was fake. How was it different? Moreover, Chu Xiu had never considered joining the moon-worshipping cult. Chu Xiu had never been the kind of person who would submit to others. Even if he joined the Guanzhong torture room now, he didn't have the slightest loyalty to the Guanzhong torture room. Compared with the Guanzhong torture room, the moon-worshipping cult was powerful, but there were too many restrictions. If Chu Xiu joined the moon-worshipping cult, he would be subjected to too many restrictions. And now, on the surface, he was the sentencing officer of the Guanzhong Disciplinary Hall, but in the dark, he was still the rising star of the Hidden Devil clan. He was not a member of the Yin Demon sect, nor was he a member of the Phaseless Demon sect. His relationship with the entire Hidden Devil clan could only be said to be a cooperative one, and he did not receive many restrictions. He could even use the power of the Hidden Devil clan to intimidate others. This was already good enough for Chu Xiu. Of course, there was also the glazed gold thread goo. This thing came from the moon-worshipping cult. If Chu Xiu joined the moon-worshipping cult, it was likely that someone would notice something. Therefore, even if Mei Qinglian didn't say this, Chu Xiu wouldn't consider the moon-worshipping cult. Chu Xiu asked at this time, Saintess, after the battle of righteous and demonic on floating Jade Mountain, what is the Yinma clan going to do? Mei Qinglian said lightly, low-key, even more low-key than before. In this battle of righteous and demonic, our Yinma clan has exposed too much power, which is enough to attract the attention of righteous sects, or more accurately, suppression and hostility. Therefore we have to be low-key. Even the Phaseless Demon sect is not going to make trouble in Jianghu for the time being. And this time, the moon-worshipping cult has made a name for itself and is in the limelight. At present, 99% of the righteous sects are focused on the moon-worshipping cult. Even if the sky falls, the moon-worshipping cult will hold it up. Therefore, as long as our Yinma clan remains low-key, nothing will happen. Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, in this case, isn't the moon-worshipping cult in the limelight the one who will suffer in the end? Mei Qinglian sneered, the moon-worshipping cult will suffer? Yi Xiaonan is smarter than anyone else. There are no fools in the moon-worshipping cult. How can they be willing to be targets? Our Yinma clan needs to be low-key, while the moon-worshipping cult will be even more high-profile. The reason is very simple. The so-called number one demonic sect in the past was just said by some busybodies. But after the battle of righteous and demonic on floating Jade Mountain, the reputation of moon-worshipping cult as the number one demonic sect has almost been established. Although fame was something that could not be seen or touched, it was very useful for a top-notch sect. If it weren't for that, the 5 great sword sects would not have gone to such lengths to vie for the position of the strongest amongst the 5 great sword sects. The reputation of the moon-worshipping cult has been established. I'm sure that there will be countless demonic martial artists who will choose to join the moon-worshipping cult. Even if there is only 1% or 1/1000 of them, the moon-worshipping cult will still benefit. Chu Xiu couldn't help but shake his head when he heard this. Whether it was the moon-worshipping cult or the Yinma clan, this group of demonic martial artists were ruthless and cunning. No matter how they schemed against him, they would not suffer a loss. The Ima clan was low-key and forbearing. They did not take the initiative to steal the limelight for safety, while the moon-worshipping cult was high-profile for reputation and benefits. Anyway, both sides would not suffer a loss. After chatting with Mei Qinglian about the demonic martial artists for a while, Mei Qinglian also left. She couldn't leave the Guanzhong area for too long, otherwise it would definitely arouse suspicion. After Mei Qinglian left, Chu Xiu had a leisurely time. No one came to disturb him, so Chu Xiu had been cultivating in seclusion. While cultivating his realm, he was also honing his martial arts. Especially the great demonic blood technique and the blood transformation saber, these two martial arts, Chu Xiu also used this time to familiarize himself with them. More than 20 days later, Chu Xiu was still cultivating, but in the lobby courtyard of the Guanxi branch, Tangya was leisurely basking in the sun, holding a plate of melon seeds in his hand, eating them with relish. Ghost Hand King stood beside Tangya and couldn't help but shake his head. I say, Tangya, you are the Jianzhou Prefecture Inspector. Why don't you go back to Jianzhou Prefecture? What are you doing here in the Guanxi branch? Also, you have the time to eat melon seeds and bask in the sun here, but don't you have time to cultivate? Ghost Hand King had known Tangya for many years. Before Heavenly Sin Branch leader took over the current Heavenly Sin Branch, he had already known Tangya, but until now, Ghost Hand King still couldn't understand what Tangya was thinking. Logically speaking, now that they were following Chu Xiu, there was a lot less danger and their status had also risen. Naturally, they should try their best to cultivate. Yen Bugue was a person who was obsessed with martial arts. In his world, there were only two things: killing people and practicing swordsmanship. Even if no one urged him, he would always be like this. As for people like Fire Slave and Wolf King, they also worked hard to do their own things, for fear that they could not catch up with official Chu's footsteps and be abandoned. Ghost Hand King knew that he was old and probably couldn't fight and kill anymore, but he still tried his best to help Chu Xiu deal with the Guanxi region, just to prove his value. Among them, only Tangya was the most special. He seemed to not care about anything, but his ability and strength were the best among them. As long as it was a task that Chu Xiu gave him, there was no task that he couldn't do. As a result, now that Chu Xiu was in seclusion, he didn't give him any task. He just basked in the sun and ate melon seeds all day, not cultivating. Of course, Tangya was not really a salted fish and didn't want to improve at all. It was just that compared to the time he spent cultivating, the time he spent enjoying life was a little too long. Upon hearing that, Tangya just said lazily, "What can happen in the Jianzhou Prefecture? It's fine as long as my subordinates manage it. There are few people there. How can it be compared to the branch with so many people and so many fun places? Moreover, Sir is in seclusion during this period. It's equivalent to me guarding the door for Sir. Moreover, life is only a few hundred years. Even if you cultivate to the martial Dao Grandmaster realm and have a lifespan of 300 years, so what? Wouldn't it be a pity to waste most of your time on boring cultivation?" Ghost Hand King shook his head and said, "If all the martial artists in the world had the same mentality as you, then the underworld would be peaceful." After reprimanding Tangya for a while, the Ghost Hand King didn't bother with him anymore because he knew that even with Tangya's attitude of slacking off in his cultivation, he was still stronger than Fire Slave and Wolf King. Even his realm was higher than them. It couldn't be helped. Talent and comprehension were just that capricious. At this moment, there was a sudden commotion outside the Punishment Hall branch. Tangya and Ghost Hand King got up and looked. It turned out to be a young martial artist with inborn realm strength who wanted to barge in. He shouted, "I want to see Official Chu. Let me see Official Chu." The young man had a Northern Yen accent, which made Tangya and Ghost Hand King feel a sense of familiarity. In fact, neither of them were Northern Yen people. It was just that after staying in Northern Yen for so long, the two of them coincidentally picked up the Northern Yen accent. The martial artists in charge of guarding the Guanxi branch were also inborn realm strength. One of them frowned and said, "This is the Guanxi Punishment Hall branch. Who are you? Why do you want to see Official Chu? Tell me, I'll go report it." But the young man seemed to be in a hurry. He was sweating profusely and said excitedly, "It's too late. I'm going to see Official Chu now." The martial artist guarding the door sneered, "What a joke. If I have to disturb Sir just because a cat or dog wants to see him, then what's the point of Sir keeping us? You better behave yourself. How dare you cause trouble in the Guanxi branch? Are you tired of living?" Nowadays, the Jianghu arresters from the Guanxi branch were very unyielding. They were almost the only ones in Guanxi. other than the people from the main hall, who dared to not give them face. Those sects and aristocratic families who were more arrogant in the past had to be polite when they saw them. When the young martial artist saw that these people were not letting him pass, he couldn't help but shout angrily and directly attacked the 4 guards. The 4 people in charge of guarding the door were all veterans of the Guanzhong Disciplinary Hall. Although they were not too strong, they were not too weak either. However, they were still easily defeated by the young man despite fighting 1 against 4. They ran into the hall and bumped into the Ghost Hand King and Tanya. Ghost Hand King snorted coldly and said, "How dare you be so presumptuous in the Guanxi Punishment Hall branch? Tanya, take him down." It was unknown if the young martial artist didn't see through Tanya's strength and wanted to fight him. In the end, Tanya just lightly tapped a few times and a few invisible finger energies had already blasted into the young martial artist's body, directly sealing his meridians and causing the young martial artist to fall to the ground. Tanya picked him up with interest and said with a smile, "Which sect are you from? Do you know where this place is? You're lucky to have met me today. If it were someone else like Yen Bugue, you'd be a meat paste by now. Do you believe me?" The martial artist struggled agitatedly and said, "I didn't mean to offend Official Chu, I really have an urgent matter. If you don't believe me, take out the thing in my pocket and give it to Official Chu. You will definitely see me." Seeing the other party speaking so confidently, Tanya was also a little curious. He rummaged around in his pocket and took out a 9-dragon coin. However, it was missing a corner and there was a small mark on it as if it was carved with a sharp object. It looked like a halberd. Chapter 411. Being awakened from his retreat, Chu Xiu was a little upset, because he had gained a lot from this retreat, which even made him feel like he was immersed in it. Martial Dao cultivation was a very boring thing, at least for most martial artists. For them, martial Dao was just a way of survival that could make them stronger and survive. Although it was boring, they could only bite the bullet and cultivate hard. However, for some martial artists, in their opinion, martial Dao cultivation was a kind of enjoyment. Every time they broke through a realm and took a step forward, it would make them feel extremely comfortable. Generally, people in the martial world would call such people a martial addict. Chu Xiu was not a martial addict, but this retreat also gave him a feeling of a martial addict. When participating in the Demon Alliance meeting, Chu Xiu fought with Chou Xiangzi and Yi Tianxie one after another. In the war between the righteous and demonic factions, he killed Chou Xiangzi, Xiahou Wujiang, and Hui Jin one after another. He even fought with several Shaolin Temple masters, and he also fought with Fang Qishao on the way of karma. These were all experiences for Chu Xiu, and they were rich experiences in martial Dao. Of course, the biggest shock that this war brought to Chu Xiu was the fight between the real Pellet State Martial Dao Grandmasters and the true Fire Spirit Refinement Realm powerhouses. Although the previous Chu Xiu was not a frog at the bottom of a well, his knowledge was still a little less after all. But now he really saw what the top powerhouses in the martial world looked like, which gave Chu Xiu an amazing insight. Therefore, during this period of time, Chu Xiu spent most of his time in retreat to digest these experiences and insights. Unconsciously, Chu Xiu was immersed in it. At this time, his retreat was interrupted. Although Chu Xiu was a little unhappy, he still went out first because he knew that whether it was the Ghost Hand King or Tanya, they were not rash people. Since they interrupted him at this time, there must be something important happening. Walking out of the seclusion chamber, Chu Xiu asked in a deep voice, "What happened?" The Ghost Hand King handed the 9-dragon coin to Chu Xiu and said, "There is a Northern Yin warrior at the entrance of the Guanxi branch. He barged in forcefully and kept saying that he wanted to see you. When we asked him, he didn't say what he wanted and only gave us this. He said that once you saw it, you would definitely see him." Chu Xiu took the 9-dragon coin. This was the symbol of his 9-branch hall, and there was a halberd drawn on it. Its aura was exactly the same as the one left behind by Lu Fengxian. This 9-dragon coin definitely represented Lu Fengxian. After receiving the 9-dragon coins, Chu Xiu's first thought was that something had happened to Lu Fengxian. So Chu Xiu said to the Ghost Hand King, "Call that person to see me now." A strange expression appeared on the Ghost Hand King's face. It seems that this person really wasn't lying, but who is this person? Could it be Official Chu's old friend from the Northern Yin? When the martial artist was brought to the hall, although he was very anxious, he still looked at the Ghost Hand King and Tanya. The Ghost Hand King and Tanya were the kind of people who knew what was going on. As soon as they saw the look on their faces, they immediately knew what was going on. Without waiting for Chu Xiu's order, they directly walked out of the door and closed it on the way. The young martial artist directly knelt in front of Chu Xiu and shouted, "Official Chu, please save Brother Lu." Chu Xiu raised his hand and a stream of true qi helped the young martial artist up. He frowned and said, "Since Brother Lu gave you the 9 dragon coins, you must be someone he trusts very much. You should also know the relationship between me and Brother Lu. Now tell me slowly what happened to Brother Lu." Under Chu Xiu's calm attitude, the martial artist also calmed down and told the whole story to Chu Xiu. This young martial artist was called Qin Sheng. He was a rogue martial artist from the northern Yan West. He was young but not weak. He could be considered as one of the local young elites. Lu Fengxian was also from the western Yan West. After saying goodbye in the Tower of Babel, Lu Fengxian went to the western Yan West to visit her friends and relatives. She accidentally met this Qin Sheng. Although Qin Sheng was a bit impulsive, he was young and hot-blooded. He was willing to help others, which was to Lu Fengxian's liking. The two became friends. Moreover, LV Fengxian's personal charm was also present here. Qin Sheng had only known LV Fengxian for a few days, but he had already completely regarded LV Fengxian as the kind of big brother who could rely on him for life and death. He admired LV Fengxian very much, and LV Fengxian did not hide anything from Qin Sheng on martial arts, and gave him a lot of pointers. If there were no accidents, Lu Fengxian planned to stay in the northern Yan West for a while before leaving. But now something unexpected happened. Lu Fengxian was involved in a massacre because of a former friend. This matter could not have been done by Lu Fengxian. Whether it was his character or motive, Lu Fengxian had no reason to kill people. To put it bluntly, he was purely passing by. In the end, LV Fengxian became the murderer and was even blamed by Nie Donglu of the Morgue village. He called on the martial arts world of northern Yan to hunt down and kill LV Fengxian. The Morgue village even sent out a large part of their forces, including many warriors of the oneness of heaven and men realm. It seemed that they had completely regarded LV Fengxian as the murderer of the family and wanted to kill her to vent their anger. Qin Sheng's eyes were red as he said, "Brother Lu's kung fu is very strong. Even if there were countless people chasing after him, they still couldn't catch him. However, there were too many of them. When I left, Brother Lu couldn't hold on any longer and was injured. That's why he asked me to find you. He said that as long as I brought this thing, Official Chu, you would not ignore it." Chu Xiu nodded, but there was a strong killing intent in his eyes. Nie Donglu. Chu Xiu didn't believe that LV Fengxian had exterminated and killed people. With LV Fengxian's character, even if someone offended him, he would at most kill the culprit. He wouldn't implicate his family. Chu Xiu was the one who liked to kill people, not Lu Fengxian. When he heard that the Morgue and Nie Donglu were involved, Chu Xiu immediately guessed that Nie Donglu was purposely trying to harm Lu Fengxian. The Morgue was not the Guanzhong torture room of the northern Yan, where they would interfere if someone died. There had been countless incidents of families being destroyed in the pugilistic world. Why would the Morgue care? Now that the Morgue village had interfered in this matter, it was obvious that they were here for LV Fengxian. Nie Donglu had never been a generous person. In Chu Xiu's opinion, Lu Fengxian was implicated because of him. Not long ago in the arena, Chu Xiu had crushed Nie Donglu, making him suffer a complete defeat. After that, the World Sword Sect Conference became a war between the righteous and demonic sects on floating Jade Mountain. It was a mess everywhere. Nie Donglu could only swallow his anger for the time being. However, when he returned to the northern Yan, he met Lu Fengxian. He naturally knew the relationship between Lu Fengxian and Chu Xiu, so he took the opportunity to harm Lu Fengxian. Chu Xiu's eyes revealed a trace of darkness. He did not take the initiative to find trouble with Nie Donglu, but now he dared to provoke him. Did he really think that he could not do anything because the northern Yan was the Morgue's home ground? Seeing that Chu Xiu was silent, Qin Sheng could not help but say anxiously, "Official Chu, Brother Lu is still being chased by the Morgue and the warriors recruited by the Morgue. If you do not act, Brother Lu will be in danger." Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, "Lu Fengxian is my friend. Now that he is in trouble, I naturally will not ignore it. However, at my level, a slight move in one part will affect the whole situation. Some things still need to be arranged. Moreover, the other party is backed by Nie Rinlong. This time, we may even have to face such a martial Dao Grandmaster, so we can only be careful and cautious. I have to find a way to restrain the Morgue first before I can act." Perhaps Chu Xiu's calmness infected Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng, who had been anxious, finally calmed down. After making some arrangements in the Guanxi area, Chu Xiu also took some people with him. This time, when going to the northern Yan to rescue people, Chu Xiu was likely to face the Morgue, so he took the elites from the Blue Dragon Society with him, leaving Du Guangzhong and the others to guard the Guanxi area. Moreover, before going to the northern Yen, Chu Xiu had to report to Guanxiu. Although the entire Guangzhong torture room had tacitly agreed that Chu Xiu was the face of the Guangzhong torture room, he could walk around freely, but he still had to go through the necessary procedures. Of course, the most important thing was that Chu Xiu was going to borrow something from Mei Qinglian, something that could suppress the morgue. After bringing people to the headquarters of the torture chamber, Chu Xiu reported to Guanxiu and went to find Mei Qinglian. At this time, Mei Qinglian was even more relaxed. She was playing with a bird in the garden. It was a cute little bird that was sky blue with a touch of green on its head. It was only the size of a palm and did not have a cage, but it was chirping around Mei Qinglian looking very cute. Seeing that Chu Xiu had arrived, Mei Qinglian said in a lazy tone, "Why are you here? What's the matter?" Chu Xiu said in a low voice, "I have some trouble here, so I need to borrow something from you, Saintess." "What trouble?" After Chu Xiu told Mei Qinglian about Lu Fengxian, Mei Qinglian said with a strange expression, "You, Chu Xiu, actually took the initiative to save someone? And to save a man? This is not your style. People say that anger is for a woman, but now you, Chu Xiu, are going to go to the morgue for a man?" Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "I am not alone, of course I have friends. Moreover, I will not lose out by making friends with Lu Fengxian. I saved him once today, and he will return the favor 10 times or 100 times in the future. He is not a person who will disappoint his friends." Mei Qinglian didn't understand at the moment, but she would understand in the future. Making friends with LV Fengxian was definitely the best deal in the world of martial arts. Chapter 412. Mei Qinglian didn't know Lu Fengxian, but she knew that Chu Xiu was a man who would never suffer a loss. He was a good judge of character. Since Chu Xiu said that he wouldn't suffer a loss to save Lu Fengxian, then he wouldn't. Moreover, Mei Qinglian was also very curious about what kind of person Chu Xiu would hold in such high esteem. After all, Chu Xiu didn't look so arrogant, but Mei Qinglian knew that he didn't care about young experts like Zhang Qingzhen or Zhong Xian. Mei Qinglian thought for a while and said, "You have to think carefully before you act. Loyalty Village is not easy to deal with." Although Nie Renlong was the only martial Dao grandmaster in the morgue, what made people afraid of the morgue was not Nie Renlong's strength, but the morgue's connections and reputation. In other places, these connections and reputation may not be useful. But in northern Yen, that is the territory of the morgue village. Although the morgue village may not have 100 followers with a single call, it can at least create a considerable reputation in the local area. Chu Xiu nodded and said, "I know. That's why I want to borrow something from you." Mei Qinglian raised her eyebrows and said, "What do you want to borrow?" Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "People." "People?" Chu Xiu nodded and said, "It's people. Among the Yinma clan, there must be quite a few grandmaster-level experts hiding on the surface. Just like you and me, we need to borrow people like this. I won't let these people help me deal with the people from the morgue village. I'll deal with the other people from the morgue village. I just hope that if Nie Renlong really doesn't care about his reputation and wants to bully me, this person will stand up for me, Nie Renlong." Mei Qinglian nodded and said, "I see. In that case, there are a lot of people like this. Leave it to me." Last time at the Demon Dao Alliance, Chu Xiu had already seen the power of the Yinma lineage in Mei Qinglian's face. This saintess position in Yinma clan was not low. Mr. Lu and other people from Phaseless Demon sect had to give her face. Even Wei Shuya, an old monster of Yinma clan, knew her. So this time, Chu Xiu believed that Mei Qinglian's connections were far more than that. The martial arts grand masters of Yinma clan in northern Yen should also give her face. It seemed that it was true. Mei Qinglian agreed lightly and didn't ask Chu Xiu to take out anything in exchange, as if she just said it casually. "Thank you, Saintess." Chu Xiu cupped his hands at Mei Qinglian. It was not appropriate for him to stay at Mei Qinglian's place any longer. After a few polite words, he turned around and left. Northern Yen Lepian County in Loyalty Village. Nie Donglu was called to the study by Nie Renlong, but Nie Renlong was only dealing with some official documents in the study. He didn't care about Nie Donglu, who was called to the study. The atmosphere was extremely depressing. Nie Donglu knew that he must have done something wrong to make Nie Renlong angry. However, Nie Donglu had always lived up to his expectations. In some aspects, he even exceeded Nie Renlong's expectations. So Nie Renlong rarely blamed Nie Donglu, and this kind of thing rarely happened. Nie Donglu could more or less guess why Nie Renlong was angry. He had even thought of an excuse, so even though the atmosphere was depressing, he was still calm and collected. After an hour, Nie Rinlong finished dealing with the matters in front of him. He looked at Nie Donglu and said expressionlessly, "Looking at your calm appearance, you should know why I called you here, right?" Nie Donglu nodded and said, "I know. It must be because I mobilized the experts in Loyalty Village and instigated the Northern Yen pugilistic world to hunt down Lu Fengxian." Nie Rinlong snorted coldly and said, "Since you know, why did you do it? I know you're angry about losing to Chu Xiu in the World Sword Sect conference, but you shouldn't vent your anger like this. It's not a big deal that you lost to Chu Xiu now. There's still a long way to go. I've taught you countless times that you have to look far ahead. Don't care about temporary gains and losses. The one who can walk to the end is the winner. But what about you? Just because Lu Fengxian is a good friend of Chu Xiu, you framed him for participating in the massacre. You even mobilized the strength of Loyalty Village to kill Lu Fengxian. Does this kind of thing benefit our Loyalty Village? Using such a childish method to take revenge will only lower your own realm and waste the strength of Loyalty Village. There's no benefit at all." Nie Rinlong didn't oppose Nie Donglio's revenge, but even if he wanted to take revenge, it was best to use a more effective method. He shouldn't be like this, making a small fuss to discuss Chu Xiu and only daring to attack the people around Chu Xiu. Nie Donglu had a serious expression as he said in a deep voice, "Father, do you still not believe me? I won't do this kind of thing that harms others without any benefits. The reason I recklessly chased after Lu Fengxian was not to discuss Chu Xiu, but to eliminate a threat, a large threat. Compared to Chu Xiu, although Lu Fengxian didn't have a good reputation in the Jianghu, he was still a hidden dragon. As long as he had a chance he would soar into the sky. His strength and potential were not inferior to Chu Xiu's. When he and Chu Xiu were chased out of Northern Yen, one went to the Guangzhong torture room and the other went to West Chu. Although Lu Fengxian didn't do as much as Chu Xiu and West Chu, he was appreciated by the World Alliance's Qinqing Di. Qinqing Di even personally asked him to join the World Alliance, but Lu Fengxian rejected him. "Father, how could a person that the World Alliance's Alliance Master Qinqing Di values so much be someone easy to deal with? That Lu Fengxian and Chu Xiu are close friends. If I want to deal with Chu Xiu in the future, Lu Fengxian will definitely be a great enemy. Me making a move against him now is to eliminate a large threat in the future." Hearing Nie Donglio's words, Nie Rinlong's expression slightly changed. He naturally knew about the World Alliance's Qinqing Di. He also knew what kind of existence Qinqing Di was. Although the World Alliance was in West Chu and the Mortuary Manor was in Northern Yen, Nie Rinlong and Qinqing Di were very similar. Therefore Nie Rinlong had carefully studied Qinqing Di. The two of them were very similar but also very different. If the Mortuary Manor relied on Nie Rinlong's connections and slowly developed to where it was now, then the World Alliance relied on Qinqing Di's iron fists to conquer thousands of miles of land. Compared to the various schemes Nie Rinlong used to develop the Mortuary Manor, Qinqing Di's methods were very simple, to the point that it made one's hair stand on end. If you didn't want to kneel, then you would be beaten to death. It was extremely simple and violent. If he didn't want to kneel, he could just kill him. It was simple and violent to the extreme. With Nie Rinlong's personality, of course, he wouldn't approve of such methods. However, he had to admit that Qinqing Di was superior to him. At least, if he were in Qinqing Di's shoes, Nie Rinlong wouldn't be able to be as domineering as Qinqing Di. Now that Qinqing Di thought so highly of Lu Fengxian, it was no wonder that Nie Donglu was so afraid of her. Nie Rinlong looked a little better. As long as Nie Donglu didn't seek revenge out of jealousy and hatred, wasting the power of the morgue, then it was fine. However, Nie Rinlong still said with a serious expression, "Since you know that Lu Fengxian is a threat in the future, but you still don't give him enough attention. You were the one who ordered Meng Yuanlong to take some of the followers of the morgue to kill Lu Fengxian?" Nie Donglu hesitated for a moment, but he still nodded. Jihua Green Peak Meng Yuanlong was the head guest of the morgue, and also Nie Rinlong's sworn brother. Therefore, when Nie Donglu asked Meng Yuanlong to help, Meng Yuanlong didn't refuse and led his men to kill Lu Fengxian. Nie Rinlong said expressionlessly, "Just now there was news from Yanxi that Meng Yuanlong is dead. He was killed by Lu Fengxian with his halberd." "What?" Nie Donglio's pupils constricted, and a look of disbelief appeared in his eyes. He knew how strong Meng Yuanlong was. Even among the many Unity of Heaven experts in the morgue, Meng Yuanlong was definitely considered an expert. But now Nie Rinlong said that Lu Fengxian killed Meng Yuanlong despite being a realm higher. He thought that he had overestimated Lu Fengxian, but it turned out that he had underestimated her. Meng Yuanlong was Nie Renlong's sworn brother. In the past, Nie Renlong had spent a great deal of effort to recruit Meng Yuanlong into the righteous manner. But now, when Nie Renlong talked about Meng Yuanlong's death, there was not the slightest sadness or anger in his expression and tone. It was obvious what kind of person Nie Renlong was. Nie Donglu was the same. Obviously he knew what kind of person his father was. Nie Donglu was only shocked about this, and similarly didn't feel any sadness or anger. After a moment of silence, Nie Donglu said hesitantly, "Then what should we do now?" Nie Renlong snorted coldly. "What should we do? If Meng Yuanlong wasn't killed, this would just be a matter between you juniors. When the time comes, there will naturally be many ways to get rid of Lu Fengxian. But now that Meng Yuanlong has been killed, if I still don't do anything, how will the Northern Yen pugilistic world view our morgue as weak and incompetent?" Nie Donglu frowned. "But I'm afraid that the pugilistic world will say that, Father, you attacked a junior in the pugilistic world and violated the rules. Some people relied on their strength to conquer the world, such as Qinqing Di. Others relied on their reputation to keep up appearances, such as Nie Renlong. In the Northern Yen land, Nie Renlong had a good reputation. He had a wide circle of friends, hated evil and was kind and generous. All these commendations could be applied to him. Half of the morgue was supported by Nie Renlong's reputation. Therefore Nie Renlong's reputation couldn't be tarnished. As a martial Dao master, attacking a junior was not a good thing. Nie Renlong narrowed his eyes and said, "There's one thing you did right, and that was to pin the Lu family's massacre on Lu Fengxian. I didn't attack to bully the weak, but to hunt down the villain who destroyed the Lu family, to eliminate evil for the entire pugilistic world. Donglu, remember, in this pugilistic world some things don't matter the process, only the result matters. Sometimes all you need to do is do things with a name. It's that simple. As for whether the name is real or fake, who cares?" Chapter 413. In a ruined temple on a barren mountain in the west of Yen, Lu Fengxian's white clothes were stained with blood, and her face was pale. She was sitting to one side recovering from her injuries. A few young martial artists surrounded LV Fengxian, looking vigilant as they guarded her. After a long while, Lu Fengxian opened her eyes and those people hurriedly asked, "Brother Lu, how are you?" Lu Fengxian smiled and waved her hand, "I'm a little better, but some internal injuries are not so easy to heal." After all, the opponent was the guest chief of the morgue, Jihua Qingfeng Meng Yuanlong. Although I killed him, I didn't come out unscathed. The surrounding warriors looked at Lu Fengxian with eyes full of respect. They were all Lu Fengxian's friends or warriors who admired Lu Fengxian. They were willing to stand by Lu Fengxian's side when he was being hunted by the morgue. This was also the difference between Chu Xiu and Lu Fengxian. If Chu Xiu was being hunted by the people of the morgue, Chu Xiu would most likely be a lone ranger, fighting against the enemy by himself. But Lu Fengxian's relationship with others was not ordinary. Even knowing that the opponent was the morgue, there were still so many people willing to help him. These people were Lu Fengxian's good friends in the west of Yen. Even though Lu Fengxian had left the northern Yen for several years, as soon as Lu Fengxian returned, these people were still willing to help him at this critical moment. It could be imagined how strong Lu Fengxian's personal charm was. Moreover, these people really admired Lu Fengxian, not only Lu Fengxian's character but also Lu Fengxian's strength. His opponent was the general guest manager of the Loyalty Manor, the 9 Radiance Azure Peak, Meng Yuanlong, who was renowned in the east of Swallow Mountain, yet in the end he was killed by LV Fengxian that surpassed a realm. Such strength was already unimaginable to them. One of the warriors said angrily, "I thought the people of the morgue were all chivalrous people. I didn't expect them to do such a dirty thing." Brother Lu didn't know the Lu family at all. It was only because Lu Xinli of the Lu family admired Brother Lu's character that he invited Brother Lu to a banquet. In the end, 3 days later, the Lu family was exterminated and they said that Brother Lu was the murderer. What was this? It's obvious that they're framing us. The others were also filled with righteous indignation. As Lu Fengxian's friends, they really felt injustice for Lu Fengxian, and at the same time they were full of disgust for the morgue. Someone said helplessly, "The morgue has such a good reputation in the northern Yen land, the people of Jianghu will definitely believe what they say, not us. Now that Big Brother Liu has killed Meng Yuanlong of the morgue, I believe that the morgue will send more people to kill Big Brother Liu. What should we do now?" Even in such a difficult situation, Lu Fengxian smiled and waved her hand, "Don't worry, there is always a way. I have asked Qin Sheng to help me go to the Guanzhong torture room to find Chu Xiu for help. The martial artist who had spoken before hesitantly said, Chu Xiu? But I heard that Chu Xiu's reputation in Jianghu is not good, and he is only the Guanxi penal officer of the Guanzhong torture room, and his strength is not even at the oneness of heaven and man. How can he resist the morgue? LV Fengxian smiled faintly and said, Brother Chu and I have been through life and death together. In the past we were also chased by the morgue village. At that time we were just small characters with no reputation. Even then we survived, not to mention now. Brother Chu once said that I have always been wrong in judging people, but I believe that I have not misjudged Brother Chu's character. He will come. Hearing LV Fengxian's words, the surrounding cultivators could only nod their heads. However, their crisis had yet to be resolved. The morgue village was one of the 6 gangs of the human kingdom. Not only did they have a large number of members, they also had countless connections in the land of northern Yen. It could be said that other than the morgue village, there were also countless martial arts sects that depended on or were bewitched by the morgue village. At this moment, one of the warriors suddenly said, Brother Lu, why don't we go to the Green Peak Villa for the time being? According to seniority, the master of the Green Peak Villa, Lu Qingfeng, is my martial uncle. We can hide there and wait for Brother Lu to recover before leaving. Someone hesitated. Sun Zhangqiao, it is not that we doubt you, but the morgue has too many connections in the northern Yen. Is your martial uncle reliable? What if he is also related to the morgue? The warrior called Sun Zhangqiao heard this and said coldly, What are you talking about? Could his morgue manor cover the sky with one hand in northern Yen? My master and my martial uncle Lu Qingfeng used to study martial arts under the Qishan 7 masters Feng Yuan. But my master preferred a peaceful life and didn't go to the Jianghu. He only opened a martial arts school in the state capital to make a living. My martial uncle is ambitious and went to the Jianghu after he finished his martial arts. Later, he became the disciple of several masters, but he didn't forget Grandmaster's teachings. Every year he would come to Grandmaster's birthday. My master's strength is far inferior to my martial uncle's, but my martial uncle is still very polite to my master. By the way, my uncle master had once gone to the godly martial school of the south of Yen to learn martial arts. He could be considered as an in-name disciple of the godly martial school. In the north of Yen, others might be afraid of the memorial village, but the godly martial school is definitely not afraid. Hearing Sun Zhangqiao's words, everyone looked at Lu Fengxian. As long as Lu Fengxian agreed, they would go. After all, they all regarded Lu Fengxian as their leader. Lu Fengxian nodded without thinking and said, Since Brother Sun said so, then let's go to Qingfeng Villa. This was Lu Fengxian's character. Although she was gullible, she gave people a very sincere feeling. This also touched Sun Zhangqiao, who made the suggestion. If it was Chu Xiu, he would certainly be suspicious and then beat around the bush. He would only agree when he felt that there was no problem. Therefore, under Sun Zhangqiao's lead, the group went to Qingfeng Villa. Qingfeng Villa was near the Pingyang prefecture of western Yen. It was next to a small mountain with verdant hills and clear waters. The master of the villa, Lu Qingfeng, was considered the #1 figure in the vicinity of the River Sun prefecture. In the early years he followed Sun Zhangqiao's master and became the disciple of the Qishan 7 masters Feng Yuan. Feng Yuan was a famous martial artist in the Qishan mountains of western Yen. He had the strength of 5 qis in the origin. As the name suggests, he was good at 7 martial arts, so he was called the 7 masters. Sun Zhangqiao's master only learned 4 martial arts. His talent was limited, so he could only run a martial arts school to make a living. Lu Qingfeng, on the other hand, learned all 7 martial arts in 3 years. Then he began to roam the Jianghu and learned many martial arts. A few years ago, Lu Qingfeng had reached the origin of 5 qis, and his strength had even surpassed his master. Lu Qingfeng might be a little old, so he didn't wander in Jianghu anymore. Instead, he built Qingfeng Villa with his family. Because of his strength and connections in Jianghu, Qingfeng Villa developed quite well. As Lu Qingfeng's martial nephew, Sun Zhangqiao had come to the Qingfeng Villa more than once or twice. The guards at the door all knew Sun Zhangqiao, so they didn't need to inform Lu Qingfeng before letting Sun Zhangqiao and the others in. After a while, Lu Qingfeng walked into the living room. He had a square face, wore a black brocade robe and kept 3 long strands of beard. He looked extraordinary. Martial uncle. Sun Zhangqiao quickly stood up and bowed. Lu Qingfeng was surprised to see so many people besides Sun Zhangqiao. Zhangqiao, who are they? Sun Zhangqiao hurriedly said, It's like this. This is the young Marquis Wen Lu Fengxian. I believe martial uncle should have heard of his matters. However, it was the mortuary manner that purposely framed him. Right now we are being hunted down and have no choice but to bring people to trouble Martial Uncle. Once Brother Lu's injuries are healed, we will leave. Lu Qingfeng's eyes flickered when he heard that it was LV Fengxian. He naturally knew about the death of Meng Yuanlong, the guest elder of the memorial manor. However, he never expected that the murderer would be such a handsome but seemingly frail young man. Lu Fengxian's face was pale, but he still stood up and cupped his hands. Master Lu, if it's not convenient for you, we will leave immediately. We won't cause you any trouble. Lu Qingfeng laughed and waved his hand. My young friend, what are you talking about? Since you are Zhang Chao's friends, you are also my friends. Others might be afraid of the righteous manor, but we of Qingfeng Villa are not. This is the west of Yan Kingdom, not the east of Yan Kingdom. Don't worry. Just stay here and the righteous manor won't be able to find you. Hearing Lu Qingfeng's words, the crowd nodded their heads in agreement. It seemed that Sun Zhangchao's uncle master was indeed a good friend. Lu Qingfeng arranged for someone to bring LV Fengxian down to rest, and specially ordered people to prepare a bath for them. It could be said that Lu Qingfeng had taken care of them meticulously. LV Fengxian and the others were impressed by Lu Qingfeng's generosity. Sun Zhangchao's uncle master was indeed reliable. In the evening, Lu Qingfeng invited everyone to dinner. In fact, after being hunted for so long, they were reluctant to eat now. They just wanted to rest. But since Lu Qingfeng had specially invited them, they had to give him face. After all, Lu Qingfeng was really good to them. In the center of the hall, plates of delicacies were served. Lu Qingfeng asked someone to pour everyone a glass of wine. Zhang Chao is my martial nephew. His master rarely steps into the Jianghu. It's all thanks to all of you that he has been away all these years. And it's an honor for I to meet you this time. Although the righteous manor has a good reputation in I's eyes, it's hypocritical. Meng Yuanlong even bullied the weak because of his identity as a member of the righteous manor. Now that he's been killed by you, I'm so happy. Come, let this old man toast everyone here. I hope that little friend Lu and everyone here will give this old man face. Lu Qingfeng took the initiative to raise his wine glass. LV Fengxian and the others also raised their glasses subconsciously. However, at this moment, someone suddenly stood up and shouted, "Wait! There's poison in the wine." Chapter 4:14. Everyone's expressions changed at the man's words. They put down the wine that was about to enter their mouths. Lu Qingfeng's face darkened. You came to me for protection and I didn't turn you down for Zhang Chao's sake. It's fine if you don't accept my good intentions, but now you're even saying that I poisoned the wine. It's so disappointing. Sun Zhangchao stood up and shouted at the man, Wang Shuangdong, what is the meaning of this? You were the one who made all sorts of excuses when I went to Uncle Master for help. Now you're slandering him. What are you trying to do? Wang Shuangdong stood up and snorted. What am I trying to do? I'd like to ask you, Sun Zhangchao, what are you trying to do? You all know who I am. I come from a poor family. My master is Du Bujio, the poison master. Most of the poisons in the northern Yen come from my master. The poison in this wine is my master's secret recipe, the 3-flower powder. After consuming it, one's internal energy will gradually dissipate within 3 breaths. Within 3/4 of an hour, one will temporarily become a cripple. But what the northern Yen people don't know is that my master stopped making this poison several years ago. All the 3-flower powder that's circulating in the northern Yen Jianghu is made by me. I'm just selling it under my master's name. I can't recognize other poisons, but I can recognize the poison that I made myself. If you don't believe me, take a sip. I have the antidote here. But I don't understand, Sun Zhangchao, why did you betray Brother Liu? Back then you insisted on wiping out some mountain bandits, but you were used by them. You were almost chopped into meat paste by them. It was Brother Liu who saved you. But now you've done something like this. Can you face your own conscience? I, Wang Shuangdong, kill people and practice poison. My master and I are not good people, but at least I know what loyalty is. Even if I can't help Brother Liu, I wouldn't deliberately frame him. Sun Zhangchao's face turned pale. He shouted with grief and indignation, I didn't. Why would I betray Brother Liu? Then, Sun Zhangchao turned to Lu Qingfeng and asked in disbelief, Martial Uncle, is the wine really poisoned? Lu Qingfeng's expression became extremely calm. He put down the cup and said, You've been discovered? I didn't expect Lu Fengxian to have Du Bujio's disciple by your side. If I had known earlier, I would have changed the poison. Sun Zhangchao's body swayed. His eyes were filled with anger as he questioned, "Why? Why are you doing this, martial uncle? If you don't want to help us, just say so. Why do you want to harm us? You are my martial uncle." Lu Qingfeng sneered, "Martial uncle? I don't want to be the martial uncle of a trash like you." Sun Zhangchao stared at Lu Qingfeng in disbelief. Was this the same uncle master he knew, who was kind and generous, who would ask him about his cultivation and give him a lot of cultivation resources every time they met? Lu Qingfeng continued with a sneer, "Do you think I'm willing to celebrate that old bastard's birthday every year and give gifts to that useless master of yours? It's all because that old bastard Feng Yuan hid something from me. He should have 8 of the Qishan 7 ultimate. The real 8th ultimate is his trump card, but he didn't teach it to me. He even said that my mind was unstable and I couldn't master his 8th ultimate, so he wanted to give it to that useless master of yours before he died. I've already reached the 5 Qis collecting in origin state and I'm stronger than that old bastard at his peak. What kind of martial arts can't I master? How could a master who's only at the physical invulnerability state be able to master it? That old fart was just biased. I was planning to pretend to be courteous and wait for that old bastard to die before I get the martial arts from your useless master. I didn't expect you to give me such a big gift so soon. You probably don't know that after you dared to kill Meng Yuanlong, the Morgue village has issued a warrant for your arrest. Even the entire Morgue village has been mobilized to hunt you down. Even Ye Rinlong has left the Morgue village. The Morgue village is very generous and the reward on the warrant is not small. I won't be thinking about that old bastard's martial arts anymore after I send you all to the Morgue village." In the end, Lu Qingfeng said leisurely, "I advise you to surrender. I've already informed the people from the righteous manor. If you surrender now you'll suffer less. What's wrong with that?" Now everyone understood that it wasn't that Sun Zhangchao had betrayed them, but that Lu Qingfeng was too vicious. He had pretended to be a filial son for so many years just for a martial arts manual. His acting skills were good enough. At least no one could tell that something was wrong. Of course, this was also because among the people present, Lu Fengxian was too gullible and the others were also young martial artists with little experience. If it were Chu Xiu, if Lu Qingfeng dared to show off his acting skills in front of him, Chu Xiu would let Lu Qingfeng know what a best actor was. Lu Fengxian raised the long halberd in her hand. The people who followed Lu Fengxian were also ready to fight. Lu Qingfeng shook his head. "Stubborn." As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his hand and a large group of martial artists from Green Peak Villa rushed into the hall. They were armed with weapons and were full of killing intent. Obviously they were ready. With halberd in her hand, Lu Fengxian shouted, "Follow me." As soon as she finished speaking, Lu Fengxian charged at Lu Qingfeng with the long halberd in her hand. Seeing Lu Fengxian's action, Lu Qingfeng couldn't help but sneer. Lu Fengxian was indeed terrifying to be able to kill a martial artist at the Unity of Heaven and Man stage at the 5 Qis origin stage. At least, Lu Qingfeng had never seen such a powerful young man. However, Lu Fengxian did pay a price for killing Meng Yuanlong. At the very least he was seriously injured. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in such a hurry to find a place to recover. Lu Qingfeng wasn't confident that he could defeat LV Fengxian when she was at her peak, but he was confident that he could defeat her now that she was seriously injured. Therefore, when he saw Lu Fengxian slashing with the long halberd, Lu Qingfeng didn't have the slightest vigilance and was ready to draw his sword casually. But just as Lu Fengxian's halberd slashed out halfway, a glaring red light suddenly erupted from the halberd. It was like a blood-red rainbow, and its power was extremely powerful, as if it could tear apart the heavens and the earth. An ear-piercing sonic boom suddenly erupted. As the halberd fell, the red moon dyed the entire hall red. Lu Qingfeng and his sword were cut in half by Lu Fengxian's halberd. Instant kill. Before the martial artists from Green Peak Villa could make a move, they saw such a terrifying scene. Their manor lord couldn't even withstand a single blow from that young man and was instantly killed. Perhaps even Lu Qingfeng himself didn't expect this to happen. A moment ago he was still dreaming of capturing Lu Fengxian to claim the bounty, but the next moment he was already dead. He didn't even have the mood to regret it. In the Jianghu, Lu Fengxian wasn't as famous as Chu Xiu and Ye Donglu, but Lu Fengxian was also as strong as the top 10 experts on the Longhu list. Perhaps after this battle, Lu Fengxian could be ranked in the top 10 of the Longhu list with a peace of mind. Lifting her halberd, Lu Fengxian said calmly, "Let's go." As Lu Fengxian took a step forward, the martial artists from Green Peak Villa who had surrounded them dispersed like a tide. To them, the handsome young man in front of them was as terrifying as a demon. By the time they walked out of Green Peak Villa, they were already some distance away. Just as they were about to say something excitedly, they saw Lu Fengxian's pale face turn from white to red, but it was an abnormal red. The next moment, Lu Fengxian spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face turned even paler. "Brother Lu. Brother Lu." Lu Fengxian waved her hand and said weakly, "I'm fine. The people from the righteous manor are on their way. Let's go or it'll be too late." Sun Zhangchao's face darkened. He said with shame, "Brother Lu, it's all my fault. If it weren't for me you wouldn't have been injured." Lu Fengxian shook her head. "You don't have to be like this. I know you're doing this for my own good." On the side, Wang Shuangdong pushed Sun Zhangchao away and said in a bad mood, "Get out of the way. I know you're innocent. No one is blaming you. Don't be a hindrance here." Taking out a few dawn, Wang Shuangdong gave them to Lu Fengxian and said, "Brother Lu, this is my master's secret dawn. Quickly take it. It can temporarily suppress your injuries." Someone on the side teased, "Wang Shuangdong, this is your master's dawn. Can you eat it?" Wang Shuangdong said in a bad mood, "Although my master is a poison master, he is only good at concocting poisons. He is also a pharmacist. Of course, he can also refine healing medicines. If you talk nonsense again, I will put aphrodisiac in your food." Everyone present laughed out loud. They knew that Wang Shuangdong would never betray them, because if Wang Shuangdong was disloyal, he wouldn't have warned them just now. Under the poison of the wine they would all lose their lives. Tears welled up in Sun Zhangchao's eyes. Although he had been betrayed by his uncle master, he still had so many brothers. At this moment, a mocking voice suddenly sounded, "What a deep brotherly bond. LV Fengxian, I really didn't expect you to be able to kill Lu Qingfeng after killing Supervisor Meng. With such strength you can be ranked in the top 10 of the Longhu leaderboard. But it's a pity that you've killed my people. If I let you escape from Northern Yen, where would I put my face?" As the voice faded, dozens of martial artists quickly surrounded Lu Fengxian and the others from the Dark Night. In the middle of the group was a tall, bearded middle-aged man, holding a ferocious-looking blood-red beheading knife. An expert from the Morgue village, Blood Ghost Blade Han Fong. An expert at the unity of heaven and human stage. Chapter 415. Blood Ghost Blade Han Fong wasn't as strong as Meng Yuanlong. Meng Yuanlong was the guest chamberlain and Ye Renlong's sworn brother. Whether it was power or strength, he was stronger than Han Fong. If Lu Fengxian could kill Meng Yuanlong, she could also kill Han Fong. Unfortunately, Lu Fengxian was already seriously injured. Han Fong, who was at the unity of heaven and man realm, was a more terrifying threat to Lu Fengxian than Meng Yuanlong at his peak. In the night, the blood-colored beheading blade in Han Fong's hand shone with a demonic red light. The corners of his mouth also revealed a hint of a sinister smile. In fact, Han Fong should be thanking LV Fengxian. Meng Yuanlong had always suppressed him in the guest chamberlain, so he never had the chance to stand out. In terms of relationship, Meng Yuanlong was the villa master's sworn brother. In terms of strength, he had sparred with Meng Yuanlong countless times, but he had never won even once. Therefore, as long as Meng Yuanlong was alive, it would never be his turn to be the guest chamberlain. But now that Meng Yuanlong was dead, it was his turn to take the position. Therefore, in a way he had to thank Lu Fengxian. But gratitude was just gratitude. He still had to kill Lu Fengxian. After killing Lu Fengxian, he would bring the credit back to the guest chamberlain to receive the reward. Only then would his position as the new guest chamberlain be justified. Therefore, Han Fong didn't say anything and immediately led his men to attack. He was also afraid that things would change if he delayed. The sinister beheading blade brought with it a murderous red light and exploded with a powerful aura. "They're coming for me. I'll bring up the rear. You guys go first." With a loud shout, Lu Fengxian's halberd slashed down. The red energy was as resplendent as a blood moon. Although Lu Fengxian didn't know why Nye Donglu wanted to attack him, Lu Fengxian knew that Nye Donglu was targeting him. These people were all targeting him and it had nothing to do with anyone else. These people were his best friends. Lu Fengxian already felt very guilty for getting involved in this matter because of him. Now that it was a critical moment, Lu Fengxian couldn't bear to see them die with him. Han Fong sneered and said, "Leave? None of you will be able to leave today." As soon as he finished speaking, Han Fong's beheading knife collided with Lu Fengxian's halberd. As the Gang Qi exploded, Han Fong immediately felt a huge force attack him. This caused him to uncontrollably take a few steps back, his eyes filled with shock. No wonder Lu Fengxian was able to kill Meng Yuanlong. Her strength was so great that it could be said to be terrifying. Even he felt that he wasn't a match for her when she was an entire realm higher. However, at this moment Lu Fengxian suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was frighteningly pale. At this time he was already an arrow at the end of its flight. Not to mention a great expert at the unity of heaven and man realm like Han Feng, even a weak 5-cheese origin realm martial artist would probably be able to exhaust him to death. Han Feng couldn't help but laugh when he saw this. This credit was definitely going to be his. Wang Shuangdong and the others hurriedly gathered around and shouted anxiously, "Big Brother Lu." Although Lu Fengxian had asked them to leave, none of them left. With Lu Fengxian's personality in the past, he had made many friends in the West Yen region. There were people from all walks of life, righteous, evil, and itinerant martial artists. Moreover, he had also made many good friends when he returned to the northern Yen region. Now that something had happened to him, naturally, not everyone had the courage to follow Lu Fengxian and resist the pursuit of the martyr village for the sake of loyalty. So, in fact, there were many people who had left. But now, those who stayed were loyal and were willing to accompany Lu Fengxian to die. They didn't leave in the past and now they would not leave. Looking at these people present, Han Feng couldn't help but shake his head and sneered, "You are all loyal. That's good. This time I will kill all of you in one fell swoop. It can be considered as fulfilling your loyalty." With that, Han Feng directly waved his hand, and the martyr village martial artists immediately prepared to rush over. He also slashed his saber at Lu Fengxian again. The beheading saber on the saber extended for more than 10 feet, and the ferocious blood chi on it soared into the sky. Its power was incomparably terrifying. Just as Lu Fengxian was about to erupt the last of his strength to fight for his life, and Wang Shuangdong and the others were also ready to follow Lu Fengxian to die, an even more powerful devil chi saber light fell from the sky. The saber light's devil chi soared into the sky, and when the saber slashed out, it seemed as if there were ghosts and gods crying. The surging devil chi seemed to slash out from hell, and among the evil, there was a trace of majestic divinity. The two sabers collided and Han Feng's blood-red saber light suddenly shattered. His whole body was directly slashed by the saber, and he could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this saber, Lu Fengxian's eyes suddenly lit up, and a voice came from behind him. "Sorry Brother Lu, I came a little late." Dressed in black, Chu Xiu walked out of the night, the heavenly demon dance in his hands surging with terrifying devil chi, but in the eyes of Wang Shuangdong and the others, they did not feel afraid. Instead they felt hope. Lu Fengxian knew that Chu Xiu would definitely come to save him when he received the news, so Lu Fengxian was not surprised. He just smiled and said, "You're not too late, just in time." At this moment, Wang Shuangdong and the others also looked at Chu Xiu with a strange look in their eyes. They did not know who Chu Xiu was, but they had heard Chu Xiu's name many times from Lu Fengxian. In terms of fame, Chu Xiu was an independent cultivator from the northern Yen, and he was able to climb step by step to the 6th place on the Longhu list, and even sit in the position of the Guanxi penal officer. To most people this was like a legend. Of course this was only hearsay. For those who had not come into contact with Chu Xiu, they did not think much of it. However, they were aware of Lu Fengxian's strength, and these people admired Lu Fengxian's character. They could accompany Lu Fengxian until now because of their loyalty and because of Lu Fengxian's character. At the same time, they also admired Lu Fengxian's strength, which was definitely at the level of the top 10 on the Longhu list. In the end, Chu Xiu's attack had shocked them. As a 5-cheese unification realm expert, Chu Xiu had actually seriously injured Han Feng with one slash, causing him to vomit blood. The strength of the two seemed to have been reversed. It was as if Han Feng was at the 5-cheese unification realm, while Chu Xiu was at the unity of heaven and man. One had to know that although Lu Fengxian had killed Meng Yuanlong, they themselves had been seriously injured. They did not have it as easy as Chu Xiu. Of course, with the eyesight of these people, they could not see the direct difference between Meng Yuanlong and Han Feng. In any case, to them, whether it was Meng Yuanlong or Han Feng, they were both great experts at the unity of heaven and man realm. In any case, they were very, very strong. Looking at Han Feng, Chu Xiu's eyes revealed a touch of coldness. He waved his hand and Tanya and the others surrounded him, their killing intent soaring. Although there were only a few dozen people, which was not as many as the people at the memorial hall, their aura and killing intent were stronger than the other parties. These people that Chu Xiu brought were all killers from the Blue Dragon Society in the past, and they were not easy to deal with. After joining Chu Xiu, these killers from the Blue Dragon Society did not have to busy themselves with missions and killing people every day. Instead, they had enough time to cultivate and improve their cultivation. Therefore, these people's strength and realm had improved a step. Among these people that Chu Xiu brought, the weakest among them had the cultivation of the inner aura realm. You people from the Memorial Hall are getting more and more shameless now. You can even do such a thing in broad daylight to frame others. With this kind of conduct, you have the nerve to call it a Memorial Hall? I have not seen true loyalty, but I have seen a lot of dirty and dishonest people. Han Feng looked at Chu Xiu and the surrounding warriors from the Guanzhong torture room. He coldly snorted and said, "The Guanzhong torture room still dares to meddle in the affairs of my Memorial Hall. You really think you are a piece of cake?" Although Han Feng said so, he still had no confidence in facing Chu Xiu. He was indeed at the unity of heaven and man realm, but it was precisely because of this strength that he knew how terrifying Chu Xiu, who was ranked in the top 10 of the Longhu list, was. There were more than 1 or 2 warriors at the unity of heaven and man realm who died at the hands of Chu Xiu. In the exchange of blows just now, the demonic chi entered his body and he was slightly injured. If they really fought, he did not know how many moves he could withstand from Chu Xiu. Just as Han Feng was about to think of a plan to temporarily retreat, but he could not completely let Lu Fengxian and the others go, and was preparing to delay until Nie Renlong and his men arrived, Chu Xiu was in no mood to talk nonsense with them. He directly waved his hand and said coldly, "Kill." In the past, he was chased out of the northern Yen by the people from the Memorial Hall. Now, the hatred between him and Ye Donglu was even more irreconcilable. Since this was the case, what was the point of talking nonsense? Just make a move and kill. As Chu Xiu's voice fell, Tanya and the others immediately rushed over with their men. Chu Xiu also slashed out with his saber, and a surging demonic chi soared into the sky. The Avicii Dao's 3 saber strikes combined into one, and the saber intent that could be said to be condensed to the extreme fell down. Chu Xiu's saber blocked with his saber. The first strike caused him to vomit blood, the second strike caused him to retreat, and by the third strike, the beheading saber in Han Feng's hand had been completely shattered by Chu Xiu's heavenly demon dance. Before, Han Feng was still thinking about how many moves he could withstand from Chu Xiu. Now the result was clear. The answer was only 3 moves. Han Feng was in such a difficult situation, and the other martial artists from the Memorial Hall were not much better. The martial artists from the Memorial Hall were not weak. Although most of the martial artists who were accepted by the Memorial Hall were rogue cultivators, they were also elites among rogue cultivators. However, the assassins from the Blue Dragon Society were different. They were the true cream of the crop. They practiced killing methods, and their strength was naturally higher than that of the people from the Memorial Hall. Just as the Memorial Hall was in danger, a dignified shout suddenly came from afar, "Stop!" Han Feng, who had already vomited blood due to Chu Xiu's slashes, had a glimmer of light in his eyes. Chu Xiu's eyes narrowed. Not only did he not stop, but he also formed a seal with one hand, and the surging demonic chi surged towards Han Feng, stimulating his internal injuries. This caused his already injured internal organs to continuously bleed, and the demonic chi was extracted by Chu Xiu. In an instant, his eyes revealed a trace of fear, and the blood in his body seemed to be out of control, crazily rushing towards Chu Xiu. This was the secret demonic art of the Kunlun devil cult, the great demonic blood technique. Chapter 416. With the power of the Kunlun devil cult in the past, none of the secret techniques of the Kunlun devil cult's direct descendants were weak. The great demonic blood technique had even been sealed by the people of the Sword Hut, so one could imagine its true power. Using powerful demonic chi to stimulate the blood in the opponent's body was an extremely evil method. If the opponent was injured, then the great demonic blood technique's power would multiply and worsen the injury. No wonder Han Tingyi of the Sword Hut didn't want to give it to Chu Xiu. Even in the demonic path, the evil of this demonic technique was enough to rank among the top. At this time, the voice in the distance saw that Chu Xiu still hadn't stopped. He couldn't help but roar angrily again. A powerful gust of stellar energy attacked, and in an instant the wind howled and rang through the sky. But at this time, the chi that Chu Xiu had absorbed with the great demonic blood technique was not absorbed by Chu Xiu's body. Instead, it condensed into a long blood-colored knife that was completely made of blood and slashed at Han Feng. Han Feng roared angrily. All the stellar energy in his body condensed into a point, wanting to block the knife. But the strangest thing was that the long, blood-colored knife completely ignored the defense of the stellar energy and directly pierced through Han Fang. After the long, blood-colored knife pierced through Han Fang's heart, it turned back into blood and sprinkled onto Han Fang's body, dyeing him red. This was the terror of the blood-dissipating knife. If this martial art technique was used with one's own blood, then it would be a killing move that risked one's life. The stronger one's blood was, the stronger the power of the blood-dissipating knife. But if this martial art technique was used with one's opponent's blood, then it could ignore any defense of the opponent's stellar energy. It was extremely strange. The blood drawn by the great demonic blood technique was originally of the same origin as the opponent. Now, even if it condensed into a knife, it was still a part of the opponent's body. Stellar energy could defend against the opponent's attack, but could it also defend against a part of one's own body? Therefore, the strangeness of the blood-killing divine saber could be said to be impossible to guard against. It should be said that when facing the blood-killing divine saber, one could only forcefully attack and destroy the blood-chi saber power instead of choosing to defend. When Han Fang was killed, the person who had spoken earlier was enraged to the extreme. A powerful palm print made of astral energy fell down like a mountain. It was so powerful that even the surrounding heaven and earth yuan chi was torn apart. In that instant, Chu Xiu already knew who the attacker was, so he immediately began to retreat. He retreated quickly. Although he could easily kill ordinary oneness of heaven and man martial artists now, the gap between him and a martial Dao master was still like heaven and earth. However, the area covered by that palm was simply too large. Furthermore, the power of that palm seemed to be able to control the universe, sealing off the surrounding space and causing the world's origin energy to become incomparably viscous. Almost without looking at Chu Xiu, he knew that this was Nie Renlong's heaven and earth cloud hand, which held the universe in one hand and grasped the wind and clouds. There was no way to avoid it. Chu Xiu's eyes were red, and he instantly stepped into the state of selflessness. Demonic Qi Gang Qi condensed around his body, and the power of blood intertwined with the demonic Qi. The Avicii Dao slashed out 3 times, and the demonic Qi soared into the sky with a trace of majestic divinity. This slash was enough to severely injure ordinary oneness of heaven and man martial artists, but in the hands of a martial Dao master like Nie Renlong, it was easily extinguished by his heaven and earth cloud hand. Chu Xiu did not stop. His hand formed the wisdom fist seal, and in an instant he released the aura domain, setting up an inescapable net to block this palm. However, the wisdom fist seal's aura domain that covered all directions did not even last for a breath's time before it shattered with a loud bang. Chu Xiu's expression did not change. Dugu Yin was used, and in an instant Chu Xiu's aura was as still as a mountain. Moreover, the characteristics of the inner force of the great Vajra divine powers were also displayed to the extreme, causing a layer of golden light to flicker around Chu Xiu. With a loud bang, the heaven and earth cloud hand fell, and the aura defense that Chu Xiu had set up by Dugu Yin was directly shattered. His entire body was pressed into the ground, and he was blasted more than 10 feet away. Jumping out of the big pit underground, Chu Xiu's face was slightly pale, but he was not injured. Of course, this was not something to be proud of. This was Chu Xiu's first time facing a martial Dao master head-on. In the end, after one move, he had to use all his skills to block the other party's palm. One could imagine how powerful a martial Dao master, or rather Nie Renlong himself, was. Over at the morgue, Nie Renlong walked over with a gloomy face. Behind him were Nie Donglu and a few experts from the morgue. Looking at Han Fang's corpse on the ground, Nie Renlong's face was so black that it could drip water. In fact, Nie Renlong had always been a person who did not show his emotions, but this time, their morgue had really suffered a great loss. Meng Yuanlong was his sworn brother, and also the head guest of his morgue. In fact, Nie Renlong really didn't care about the so-called sworn brothers. He had many brothers, both alive and dead. Nie Renlong only cared about the brothers that could bring him benefits, not the brothers that blocked his path. Meng Yuanlong was undoubtedly the latter. Meng Yuanlong was not weak in the first place, and more importantly, Meng Yuanlong was the head guest of the morgue. He had managed all the followers and guests of the morgue well for so many years. Now that Meng Yuanlong was dead, who could replace him in a short time? Moreover, Han Fang was also a well-known expert in their morgue, but this time he died here. Losing 2 great experts at the unity of heaven and man realm in a row was already a serious blow to the morgue. Nie Renlong looked at Chu Xiu and looked him up and down. After a while, he spat out a sentence, "Chu Xiu, how dare you? Nie Renlong knew his son's strength and temperament very well. This Chu Xiu was able to defeat Nie Donglu time and time again, and even suppress him. Nie Renlong had to admit that this person was indeed a character among the younger generation of the Jianghu. While Nie Renlong was looking at Chu Xiu was also looking at Nie Renlong, the martial arts master, without holding back. In terms of appearance, Nie Renlong had a square and masculine appearance. He wore a golden brocade robe and had a short beard on his chin. He had a righteous and awe-inspiring appearance. He stood there without saying anything, looking like a righteous and awe-inspiring senior master. However, one's appearance could not be used to judge a person. The theory that one's appearance was born from one's heart was somewhat reliable, but it was also inaccurate. In this Jianghu there were very few true chivalrous people like Chu Kuanga, but there were many hypocrites. Nie Renlong was a hypocrite who disguised himself to the extreme and even thought of himself as a chivalrous person. In the past there were 5 people in the memorial hall, but now only Nie Renlong was left. The descendants of the other people were nowhere to be found. These things could not stand up to scrutiny. However, over the years the memorial hall had made a great name for itself in the northern Yen land. It helped the wandering martial artists who passed by without asking for anything in return, and it really helped a lot of people. However, who knew what Nie Renlong had done in the dark? Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and looked at Nie Renlong, then at Nie Donglu and said lightly, "It's not that I'm brave, but that some people don't want me to live in peace. Nie Donglu, I gave you a chance to defeat me at the World Sword Sect Conference, but you didn't take it. You still only know how to play tricks in the dark. You can't beat me in a head-on fight, and even more so you can't beat Brother Lu. A guy who only knows how to play tricks in the dark won't amount to much." Nie Donglu, of course, would not lose his composure because of Chu Xiu's sarcasm. Hearing that, he just smiled and said, "Chu Xiu, my memorial hall put out a warrant to arrest Lu Fengxian this time because of public indignation, and it has nothing to do with personal grievances. This person is insane." The Lu family treated him politely, but in the end he annihilated the entire Lu family. This kind of thing happened in the northern Yen land, my memorial hall can't just ignore it. Chu Xiu sneered and said, "Brother Lu annihilated the entire Lu family? Ridiculous. Without any evidence, just based on your memorial hall's mouth, you dare to say such things? My Guanzhong torture room is the best at solving such cases. Do you dare to let my Guanzhong torture room intervene in this matter?" Nie Donglu said indifferently, "Don't forget one thing. Your Guanzhong torture room is only in charge of investigating cases, not in charge of trials. When you're needed, you're the constables of the Guanzhong torture room. When you're not needed, you're nothing. Your Guanzhong torture room has no right to intervene in northern Yen matters." Nie Renlong, who was at the side, waved his hand and said indifferently, "That's enough, Donglu. Don't talk nonsense with them, just do it." Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, "Villa Master Nie, you're a martial Dao master, but now you're openly attacking a junior martial artist like me. Isn't this a little too much? Aren't you afraid that people will say that you're bullying the weak? Also, if you dare to touch me, aren't you afraid that Guanzhong torture room will reprimand?" Nie Renlong stood with his hands behind his back and said indifferently, "Bullying the weak? I only captured a madman who dared to kill a disciple of my memorial hall. Who dares to say that I'm bullying the weak? As for Guanzhong torture room, if Chu Kuanga was still here, I would give some face to Master Chu. But Guan Xiu is not worthy of me giving him so much face. If you obediently stay in Guanzhong, naturally no one can touch you. But now you've jumped out of nowhere and killed a disciple of my memorial hall in northern Yen. You're courting death. Today I'm going to attack you. I'd like to see if Guan Xiu dares to come to my memorial hall and demand an explanation." Nie Renlong was born in the wilderness. He had spent decades to build up the Morgue village. He had relied on both his methods and his strength. If he was facing Shin Baochen, Duguli, and other powerhouses at true fire spirit refinement, Nie Donglu might still care about their reputation and not dare to attack Chu Xiu. But now he was only facing a Guanzhong torture room. To put it bluntly, Guan Xiu did not have enough face to make Nie Renlong give in. Lu Fengxian stood next to Chu Xiu and said with a somewhat solemn expression, "Brother Chu, I seem to have implicated you." Previously, when Lu Fengxian asked for help from Chu Xiu, he did not expect that it would attract a martial Dao master like Nie Renlong. If he knew that, based on Lu Fengxian's character, he would rather force himself than ask for help from Chu Xiu. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.